Okay. Hopefully it did it because I can't tell. Yeah. Okay. How you doing?
You'll
Sorry.
know it worked if there's like a little check mark with like your icon at the top.
I can't see my icon at the top. Let's see.
I
Let's
mean,
see
worst
here.
case scenario, we'll have the video after we go live anyways, and you can just upload it manually.
Oh, I put it out that I was going to be on live in an hour. That's the only reason why. Let me check really quick. 2 seconds.
Okay,
You having
hold on.
any
I think we're live. I think we're live now. So let me just put
Oh, okay.
my
Super
little
live.
intro on. I don't think I hit a button.
Okay, cool.
If you could hide a color in the twinkling of an eye, and then continue onward with that same speed to fly, do you think that you could ever, through all eternity, find out the generation where gods began to be? Or see the grand beginning where space did not extend? Or view the lost creation where gods and matter end? Methinks the spirit whispers, no man has found pure space, nor seen the outside curtains where nothing has a place. The works of God continue, and worlds and lives abound. Improvement and progression have one eternal round. There is no end to matter, there is no end to space, there is no end to spirit, there is no end to race, there is no end to virtue, there is no end to might, there is no end to wisdom, there is no end to light, there is no end to union, there is no end to youth, there is no end to priesthood, there is no end to truth. There is no end to glory, there is no end to love, there is no end to being, there is no death above. There is no end to glory, there is no end to love, there is no end to being, there is no death above. It's monthly Mormon Mondays. It's time for the secret handshake. Tune in and race through the veil. It's time for monthly Mormon Monday.
We're back and we're live, and I don't even really know what's going on because StreamYard had a big update. But anyway, we'll figure that out for the next one. Big
Oh,
announcement to make. First of all, how you doing, Heidi?
good. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I think I'm doing okay. I have a huge announcement to
Awesome.
make, and that for the both of us, and that we're both now bi. Me and you are
Oh,
bi.
yeah, apparently.
Weekly, we're going to be doing this stream. So even though it's monthly Mormon Mondays, we'll be trying to do bi-weekly, and we'll try and do it live if we can. And I'll figure the next one out better. I think I fat fingered a button
Oh
right as we were
no.
starting. So here we are. And a little bit casual since it's live. We also have a pretty awesome theme for this one, which might even be a really good ongoing theme. Maybe like a monthly or a movie Mormon Mondays,
This
maybe
is
Mormon movie Monday.
definitely depending on how much you'll talk about things. This could go on forever. because you know way more than I do. So I do have a presentation today that I was working on. So
Perfect. And
yes.
I think now too, this is like the weirdest thing, but whenever I watch a movie or a TV show, I guess especially if it's sci-fi, but whenever I watch them, I'm like, okay, who's Joseph Smith in this show, and which one is Brigham Young in this show, right? Who's Moroni?
Right.
And I can't not watch that. I've been watching a sci-fi TV series called The Ark, which obviously has like biblical connotations to it, but it seriously seems like everything in there could be kind of relayed back into Mormonism at some point. They even have like a little dude that's a prophet and everything.
I guess they're saying they can't hear me. So I'm just gonna make sure.
Bump you up a little bit.
I guess. I'll move it closer actually. Sometimes it comes in hot. So let's see. All right. Can you guys hear me now? Let's see.
Sounds like the same volume.
I'm like, uh-oh. I don't want to turn it up too high because then
I mean, blast it.
Do you know I did that on one of my shows and it wrecked my show? I had to fix my show like forever. It was horrid. So I'll blast it up a bit. But...
Well, we'll work it out as we go. There was also a huge update with StreamYard like 1 day ago, so buttons and settings have changed.
Oh, okay. Well, hopefully it's my mic. Hopefully it's coming through my mic. I wonder if that's what's up. Because they're going to want to hear me when I...
Well, it's an easy way to test is you just do a check 1 2 and then a check 1 2, and you should be able to hear the difference between your hand over it or not.
Well, I have Bluetooth in too. So hopefully it's not trying to go through those.
I can hear you. That's all that really matters because we don't even know if anyone in the comments are even real people. They could all just be CIA bots.
I mean, it's because your fault.
It would be on brand for me at least.
If Zerdus comes, they're saying they really can't hear me, so I don't know.
I can hear you. I could definitely. It might just be really quiet because I got my volume blasted.
All right. Well, here it is. So I don't know.
Well, I watched the entire first movie of Harry Potter. I guess I should lead with that we watched Harry Potter, the first movie, and under kind of like a Mormon lens, I guess. But you mentioned the last time that we talked that Mormons love Harry Potter, and I guess I didn't expect that because Catholics maybe were a little bit on the fence about Harry Potter, like maybe too occult. But Mormons love occult.
Well, Mormons do. They love Harry Potter, that's for sure, and they love Star Trek and Star Wars. Okay, is that good? I turned it up as loud as I could. Okay, so they dress up. They do, May the 4th be with you. All the things. They do all the things here. We do lots of Halloween, all the things. Mormons
so there's
love
no
all of it.
version of Mormonism where they say Halloween's off limits. It's too pagan and occult.
No. The FLDS are holding strong. No way. They will not play with that. Yeah.
They won't play with Halloween, or they won't play with taking it away.
They don't. I don't think they have any involvement in Halloween at all.
Okay. Any holiday? What about Christmas?
That I don't know. I know I've seen like on my sister wives that they do Christmas, but they're also like a modified, sect of FLDS. So who knows? But yeah, they definitely don't do the Halloween. I don't think so.
All right. Well, if anyone does want to recruit me into Mormonism, and I guess I'm on the market, but it's got to come with all the holidays. Like, you can't be taking features away at all.
Well, that's definitely, as far as I know, they're pretty good about it in the mainstream, anyways. So you might be lucky.
So Harry Potter universally liked by Mormons for the most part.
Yes, for the most part, I think they like it. In fact, in the schools here, they do Harry Potter school stuff. They do Harry Potter classrooms. I mean, it's very mainstream, along with Twilight, by the way. Very interesting enough.
And what about the ex-Mormon community? Did any of them tend to go harder into Christianity and abandon anything that would let them watch Harry Potter?
The Exmos, I mean,
or Exmos pretty much universally like more liberal.
Well, not necessarily, because if they go into Christianity, Christians overall do have some questions. And I will say this about Harry Potter. A lot of the spells that people look up are actually real. And this is in Hocus Pocus as well. So That's interesting. Yeah, to say the least.
That they're doing real magic in the movies and then getting kids to do real magic.
They say, so they say. Even Isaac Weishaupt has done a breakdown on Hocus Pocus. And so, yeah, interesting. J.K. Rowling's has Salve and Coagula tattooed on her wrists, on her arms. Did you know that?
I didn't know that. I know she's like an interesting figure now, right? Like she's political in addition to being a child's author, and it's kind of interesting.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I think they all kind of get into it, don't they? Like here we are where Eminem just came out for Kamala, so that confirmed to me that he is not the same Eminem. He's definitely dead.
Are we going body doubles now?
I think maybe because the same guy that's saying the FCC won't let me be or let me be me, so let me see. I can't imagine him endorsing Kamala, but I, do not endorse either party. So, yay, anarchy.
I think they actually have a name on the ticket, the Anarchy Party.
Yeah, I won't vote. So take me back to the 1800s. That's okay. Only because the Electoral College here, anyways, this is like a very Republican state. And I think it's only gone blue once ever. Like ever. So, yeah. Groceries were cheaper with, Orange Man, whatever. I don't care either way. It's all money magic.
So did you end up watching the first Harry Potter recently, or are you going off memory?
I'm going a little bit off memory, but I did bring some interesting things for the magical world, but we can do the movie first. But I am going off of memory for the movie. But
okay.
I
don't know anything about it. I had to watch it last night, and as I was watching, I realized that I don't think I've seen it since it came out.
Well, funny enough, right? He's got the wand. They're looking for the Sorcerer's Stone. He's got a chick with him that's pretty bossy. That's Emma for sure. I don't know. That's just my opinion, but whatever.
Well, and also as I was watching it, when they get into the little Quidditch match, and I'm jumping ahead a little bit. They get in the Quidditch, and he has to capture the snitch. It's basically like searching for gold. Like that's his role as a gold. And this would be Harry Potter as Joseph Smith, obviously, right? So Harry Potter is Joseph Smith. He's kind of this magical person among already magical people. He's like special among the special. Because even I was watching this, Harry Potter shows up to Hogwarts, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, that's the Harry Potter!" Like, like everyone's whispering around. And I was just thinking, like, damn, it would be phenomenal to just get an invite just to go to the school and be the lowest performing wizard that they even had at the school. You'd still be better than the best Muggle, wouldn't you?
Right. Well, and you met Harry Potter, so pretty cool there. Of course, Mug's life, right? They die, and maybe the wizards get to live forever. We should ask Certus. I don't know.
Do they get to live forever? How old is Dumbledore?
No, I don't know.
I didn't read the book, so I don't know any of this.
He is old, but I don't know how actually old. They do die at some point because there's more movies. You'll see. I don't want to wreck it for you, but I will say this. The reason why I wanted to name this the Harry Potter one is because I started like going knee deep into Solomonic magic. I probably should have just called you. No, you wouldn't have told me. And so I started finding so many similarities.
Just know that, like, if you ask me and I tell you, then somebody kills me. So make it sure it's really, really worth it. If you need to know information,
just give the nod or disappear, right? And so it's like I kept checking into this stuff, and I was actually not studying about Joseph Smith. Funny enough, I was studying mystical masonry, a branch called the Martinists, and that show is actually out today on Spotify. So guys, check it out. But yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, I think this is what he was. And I did ask you about the Scottish Rite. Apparently that was okay, because I was like, I don't think this is old enough. Like I'm trying to put all these little time frames together and everything. And I just didn't, from what you were telling me, I think this is probably more spot on.
My understanding is that the Red Lodge, the Scottish Rite, they are the more Eastern occult, like theosophical almost. If Blavatsky was into it, if Manly Palmer Hall was into it, it's probably going to have more references in the Scottish, or at least more correlation. And then if you stay in the Blue Lodge and you go to York Rite, now you're getting into Knights Templar and you're getting into like Christian mysticism, where maybe it doesn't pull as much from the East. So that's how it's been explained to me, but I don't know firsthand because I never went through the York Rite.
Well, and on top of it, here we have now it's coming in hot, I think. They're messing with us. Anyway, so what I started finding out is that I'm like, okay, I'm reading about all this stuff, I'm learning about all this stuff, and I was trying to find a key because I'm like, well, a key. Okay, I was trying to find an answer because I'm like, well, who did he know that was French? I mean, like, where would he get this from? Because this came from France, you know? And sure enough, our good old boy, and I couldn't find a picture of him, but we must talk about Lumen Walters, the light bringer, Lumen.
This is a Mormon?
Yeah, this is great. This is why I wanted to do this show. And so he is very much the teacher, much like our Harry Potter character, right? He comes into town and Joseph is quite young. He's actually related to Emma, and he was called the traveling necromancer. Apparently, Lumen Walters was a physician, but he wasn't. He wasn't a doctor, and he traveled over and he had just come back from France. And they said he came back full of piss and vinegar, basically, and like non-Christian type anymore. Like people were saying, oh, he's demonic and necromancer. Well, he got really close with Joseph Smith, and I do think he taught him some things. He was from a pretty high up family. They actually ended up running him out of town because this is how good he did his job, apparently.
For the record, for any of the non-sailors out there, I think it's pith and vinegar, Tith. But yeah, Heidi's got the mouth of a sailor.
I mean,
I'm the Mormon. I don't want to ruin my chances at Mormonism. You can get yourself excommunicated. That's fine.
Yeah, well, I've tried. I think maybe my bloodline is good because they still haven't kicked me out yet. But I guess I'm gonna have to go through the whole thing and do it like the regular way.
If you need your blood, there's no way you're getting out now.
Oh yeah, I'm getting out.
Because even if you get out, like if they excommunicate you, can't they just baptize you after you die anyways, and like unexcommunicate you when you're not there to cause any more problems?
Yeah, for sure. They can do that. Or you can go back. Like I had an uncle that got excommunicated like 3 times because he got married 9 times. And so you can see why he had a Joseph Smith problem. If polygamy was still in, he'd have been fine. But I do think he had the second anointing, so they kept having to let it back in. I can't prove it.
I have to jump to this now just because I don't want to miss it later or forget to bring it up. But the whole premise of Hogwarts, that my understanding, the whole Harry Potter, there's a little bit of like a Christ complex story here, where like, what if Harry Potter didn't come to school that year? Does everything just go to hell because he wasn't there to, take down the ogre and like put together this whole plot that was, Voldemort was trying to come back? But what if it's cyclical? But also it seems that Hogwarts' entire reason for being is to train these wizards that can constantly go out into the world and like save the world from itself in these magical battles. And this is a theme that we brought up before, but I like that you can go there and get a new Harry Potter technically every year. Like what happens when Harry Potter's in his college years? There's got to be a new Harry Potter coming through, or like a new class quarterback or whatever that person ends up being, right? He's like the prom king. And
right.
But in Christianity, you don't necessarily have prom king. You got the one prom king, and when he comes back, like that's the whole thing. But in Mormonism, also you've got like Joseph Smith was able to be a prophet, but there's a new prophet every, I don't know how many years. Is there a certain number that they're allowed to have per year and like actually designate? Or could one year they're just like, oh, there's 10,000 this year, like take your pick?
So basically when you are going up through the ranks, you've got the quorum of the 70 and the quorum of the 12, and you've got the first and second counselor and the president of the church. And so you have kind of an idea who's going to take over. There is only one, but let's say, because these are always old people, right? What if they both died like bam, bam? No, they got another dude that's already lined up. It's already lined up all the way down. Unless
are they always old guys? So they ever, because Joseph Smith wasn't old when he was the prophet. He was young kid.
Yeah, he was the first, but they're always old now. I've never seen a young prophet ever. They're always pretty old.
So in Harry Potter world, this was kind of what I was getting at, I guess, is that Hogwarts is not just a whole bunch of Dumbledores lying around, right? And that's because they've got so much wisdom, but you have to pass it on to this next wave of Harry Potters or whatever the next Hermione Grangers or whoever all the other guys are, the Weasleys. But they don't necessarily exist in a lot of different examples in this. So I guess when Joseph Smith died, is that Harry Potter dies and now there's never a Harry Potter again? Or is there an expectation that we might get another superstar young buck? Or is it all just old dudes forever now in Mormonism?
I mean, in Mormonism, I think it might be old dudes forever. But then again, I said they'd never change the temple garments, and bada bum, they did. So who knows?
I called in a few favors. You're welcome.
Yeah, I don't want them.
The whole reason was to entice you back in. Was that not because you talked about them so much? I figured if they just fixed that one problem, then you'd be able to go back.
No, there's so many problems. So many problems. I just think, yeah, I think there's too many things to it. It's broken a little bit. But I'll show you a little bit why. And I just feel like, again, no judgment to anyone, because whenever I interview people, I have now been called what have I been called? An occultist. And what was the other thing? That now I'm apparently one of the dark arts lords because I teach this stuff, but there's too much dark stuff in Mormonism that they make into the light. Now, if you want to do dark stuff, knock yourself out. Like, I don't care. Like, I don't care about people that want to do whatever. People be people in all over the world. If you guys want to do that, that's fine with me, but you should at least have the knowledge. If they came out and they were more, transparent and said, okay, so this is what it is, blah, blah, blah.
You will be summoning a demon. Now let's do this.
I mean, I would have left and then I wouldn't be talking about it at least. I'd just be at home with my 6 kids, but then I wouldn't have so much fun. So
Are there dark ults in Mormonism that, like, even as you get in, it's like, don't do that Mormon chant or whatever?
Well, they just change it all to the light. So they change everything to, this is how you get to heaven. This is how you do the things to get to heaven. This is all about heaven. This is all, it's never about darkness. No, they would be like, oh, occultism, clutch my pearls. Like, no, they would not. But yet the more you study, the more you know, read books. Yeah.
I mean, it is a little bit ironic just because all of the things that Joseph Smith used to write the Book of Mormon were all hidden in caves, buried underground, or it's all like, it is literal occultism. These were physical items occulted from the physical world, and he was an occultist by definition. I mean, depending on your definition, but like by definition, dictionary, he was an occultist, but no one else. I guess that's the part that frustrates me the most, is that you're allowed to have one young prophet that's all into magic and talismans and occultism, and he can found your entire religion, but no one else is ever allowed to follow in those particular footsteps. When it's like, but how do you know that you're not blowing off the next Joseph Smith? Like, the next Joseph Smith could be around right now. He could be some, like, I don't know how old was he when he
14.
Founded Mormonism. So you could have another 14-year-old that's like, I'm talking to God and there's these plates, and everyone's like, shut up, we already did that. Like, Joseph Smith already did that 200 years ago. Just don't bring it up again. But maybe he's like legitimately the next prophet, but that's been discounted, especially with a bunch of old guys.
The more you look at this whole situation and Solomonic magic and all these things we're going to talk about, wouldn't it make more sense to have it be a virgin? Right. And so, I mean, I just think it's funny that my husband, shout out my husband, he's on here right now. Shout out Casey, dude 271 DB is my husband. So I just have to say that he oftentimes told his mom, well, she'd say, just do what they said. And he's like, well, I prayed about it, just like Joseph. And this isn't the way. And she got pissed. So maybe my husband's the next Joseph, who even knows.
Well, and he mentioned that he was actually in his either way, even late 20s is still less than half the age of the current prophets, right? It's almost like presidents at this point. You got to be 80 to get on the ticket.
I know. Well, the current prophet is 100 years old. So they have figured out.
He's not.
Yes, he is. Google.
How
Yes.
long has he been prophet? Is that like there's got to be people waiting for this guy to flake.
Dude, he's figured out the keys to the kingdom, and he's doing that necromancy. I think he's got Joseph's bones. I don't even know.
Is there an actual theory that if you've got Joseph Smith bones, they
I
have some
mean,
sort of power?
we're gonna talk about a bunch of things on this slideshow. I think it's pretty interesting. The things I found, I was just like jaw dropped. It made my brain hurt. I was at work and I had to like help people that have hurt brains, and my brain was hurt. And I was like, oh no, this is not good. I got to put this down for a minute. I got to help some people because, yeah, it was a lot. It was way more than I just went into this thinking it was like, oh, and this little thing and this little thing. And when I first talked to you, I was all about it's John D and Enochian, which a lot of it is. But no, Solomonic magic is such a better fit. And when I started going into that rabbit hole, holy hell, I was like, this goes down forever. And including you Masons, you know what? As soon as you figure out something, it splits into 37 more branches, and you can't, I mean, I had to make a diagram for one
There was
faction.
this is totally tangential, but when I was working at Disney and we were doing video games, we had like all these fancy game designers from all over the world come in because it's freaking Disney and they throw money at everything. But this one thing this guy told me that stuck out, and I always related to everything, is that whenever you go to like a game and someone's like, how come game A, the option screen's got like 5 options, but like all these other games, you go to options and it's like page after page of like 50 options on each page and all these things where you can do with the cursor, like the camera or the focal. And he made a really simple statement that I'll maybe paraphrase and butcher a little bit, but it was that every single option you see on those pages represents 2 people that disagreed in a meeting at some point. So if you've got this huge company and this huge game and all these stakeholders, and you keep having meetings and everyone's like, well, I think it should, the camera should be over here. And someone's like, the camera should be over there. Then those disagreements that are not reconciled turn into these stupid little check marks and all these like, and I guess, it doesn't apply 100% to everything, but I think it's almost the exact same thing with all the factions of Christianity and Masonry and Mormonism, like anything where it's like, all right, we all agree this is the game. We all agree on exactly how you play it. But someone's like, yeah, but, I think everyone should wear blue shirts instead of red shirts. And it's like, all right, you get your own faction. So you can decide to go down that road and you just multiply that indefinitely. And you end up with 40,000 plus versions of Christianity, right? Like some are gluten-free Eucharist and some are non-gluten-free Eucharist. And that warrants their own entire faction.
Yeah, the whole thing is a mess, and all I can say is it was so much. I had no idea. I really didn't. I guess, when I hear of masonry, and I'd never really met too many Masons before I went into podcasting, and then I met quite a few, and I guess I just figured it was like almost the same. Like, okay, there's the York Rite and the Scottish Rite, and there you go. Like, that's all. And then when I started studying, yeah, I was like, this is maddening. This is a whole nother level of crazy. So I get it with the Disney thing. I mean, I guess if you want to do your own stuff with that, people piss you off, you go start your own stuff too. So
well, you've got your normal Blue Lodge 3 degree, then you've got York, then you got Scottish, but then you also have Northern jurisdiction and Southern jurisdiction, and then you have Grand Lodges in each state, which change the ceremony and some of the acceptable practices and things like that. And then even in the most microcosm within the lodge, you've got kind of like that common archetypes of the guy that's there to network, the guy that's there because he's retired and doesn't, and so like a social support system. There's the people that are big into philanthropy and they want to, like, there's all these different reasons that people get into it too. And it's really hard to be like, oh yeah, they're all the same. Like you can't just grab one from one lodge and another. Sometimes it's oil and water or piss and vinegar, as Heidi would say.
I would say that. I was just shocked. I was like, wow. And the thing about it was that shocked me. Remember, I wasn't studying Masonry. I was studying one little tiny faction of Masonry that's really, I've heard, is extremely obscure. This Gnostic type Masonry, this mystical Masonry that actually has.
Or are we just talking Scottish right now?
No, it's Martinism. And so, and we're talking about Pasquale, I'm sure you know who that is. And it even branches off. It even branches into other ones. So I was just like, this is insane. Like, literally, even the guy that basically it's named after was like, no, don't talk about it to me. And he left the whole thing later and was like, psh, don't talk to any angels. They're bad. And I was like, yeah, John D said that. Like, you should probably listen to him. He knew some stuff, right? Like, psh. And so he was just done.
I see
that.
John D a little bit as a guy that had a huge library and a lot of resources to procure all these books from all over the place. And he kind of represents somebody that was compiling all this different information into something new. And then he starts coming up with like some of his sigil magic. It was based on previous sigil magic, but he puts together like a universal system using magic squares and then kind of just like tracing it. So he sort of designs this formula and a theory, like a magical practice theory that's built on all this other sort of maybe not even super connected different occult books from before that time. So in my mind, John D kind of has a class of his own where he's this master librarian that was like, it's almost like a Dewey Decimal System. I kind of think John D is like a Dewey Decimal. Like, he didn't write every book in a library. He didn't even read every book in a library, or maybe he did. But like, he figured out a way to have books relate to each other and to put it into such a tangible practice that now everyone kind of universally does this. And that was sort of his role. Like, he was the advisor to the queen. And I'm sure that was part of the paycheck, was like, hey, you got to put this together. See what they're doing with the Bible over here? We need like an occult Bible. And he kind of puts that together.
But hide it.
More of
you got to hide it, right? You got to hide that, because
I don't even think they had to hide it actively, because this was only accessible to, like, you had to be fairly rich and well connected to even get your hands on a lot of these books and things that he was working in. So it was a little bit more self-regulating.
Well, he had to literally bury his books because they came at him. They arrested him and he almost got burned at the stake. So at least sometimes, and then King James took over and we all know what happens there. So he took off after that. So, and he went to Russia and did all that, or not Russia, Ukraine or somewhere. I can't remember. But anyway, he took off to see another king. And I was just shocked that, he got away with so much. And even the angels told him, like, yeah, burn your stuff. It's fine. We'll put it back. And they did, apparently. So
very Joseph Smith like him. And yeah, he had like, I think like a secret little compartment or something that he would stash books behind. And I don't know if this was to prevent people from stealing them. I think in one, and I might be totally off on this, but when he was collaborating with Edward Kelly, I believe he had some sort of suspicion at a certain point and was like hiding books in order to kind of test them. And I think he passed all the tests. I think Edward Kelly passed every one of them.
Yeah, it was definitely strange. They always skip over, he had another person that he worked with for a while as well, other than Kelly, but Kelly actually didn't. I think it's funny that Kelly passed everything because he was not in it. He was not in it to win it. After so long, he was like, bruh, I want out of here. They all say, Kelly was this big nefarious person that just wanted to bang his wife. And I don't think he was, because he was trying to leave all the time. He was like, I don't want a wife. I hate all of you. Like, get away from me. I keep getting stabbed with fake swords coming out of books. Like, I think he was legitimately scared.
He didn't want to be at Hogwarts anymore. He's like, bring me back to public school.
Oh my gosh. He was like, well, and he ran away. He ran away twice, and they were like, and he came back of his own volition. Because the angels were like, we're going to torment the crap out of you until you go back and finish this.
Yeah, you got to go finish your veggies, dude. You can't be summoning us and just like leaving, like riding out on us. And this is something that Juan says a lot too, because I guess I just like the idea that this young guy comes up and like bangs John D's wife and like steals his stuff and like convinces, oh yeah, I'm talking to an angel right now. He tells me, you need to shell out another $1 or whatever. But Juan has this stance that John D was such a master of the arts, the liberal sciences, that just on paper, he would be the master manipulator here. So if you have nothing else to go on other than the stats on paper, like whatever his stats on the back of his trading card are, then John D is the one that's forcing Ed Kelly, or is at least manipulating Edward Kelly to do what he wants, and it's not Edward Kelly like sneakily banging John Dee's wife. Like John
I
Dee
have
had to have seen
yeah,
that coming.
I have to agree with Juan, and I do often. He should come on and talk with us someday. But actually, I have to agree, because why would he choose Edward Kelly, this guy that had been in trouble for forging mortgage documents and stuff and got his ears chopped and all this business? So why would he do that and not just choose someone in his own circle of people, right? Like, basically, he chose someone he knew couldn't just leave. He did. And so I'm with Juan on that one. But hey, what do we know?
Well, so if you've got a presentation, I feel like I want to
I
just let
do.
you have at it. So maybe I'll just rapid fire some of my random observations, and then maybe they'll tie back in as you do in your presentation. But here, as you pull it up and you get it all prepped and everything, I'll just go through. I guess some of them are a little bit silly, but
Hey,
you,
that's okay. And they're
you talk.
these photos that I'm going to be showing are talking points, not like just me
Okay.
talking. So,
Well, so his original gnosis and like understanding that he's even magic at all starts with him talking to a snake. So there's like a biblical aspect to it. And he makes this glass disappear, and his, I guess, like adopted brother, or he's the adopted one. Harry Potter's the adopted one, but his like host family, his host brother falls in. And my immediate thought was that was how Harambe died. So this is just like Harry Potter, Harambe might have a crossover in there. Diagon Alley, is this Salt Lake City? Is this the temple essentially? Or is there a better reference to what this would be? Is this like the
man.
Zion that never formed?
How about if it's Diagon Alley, my guess is it's the tunnels under Utah, which we should totally do an episode
okay.
about.
So we're in the tunnels under Utah. Have to mention the Gringotts Wizard Bank. Everyone always points to this as J.K. Rowling being anti-Semitic, or why did they put a whole bunch of goblins and trolls in this bank with the Seal of Solomon all over the floor? But that's because they used an actual bank called the Australia House in London. J.K. Rowling did not create a full bank; they just used an existing one. But I mean, the symbolism's there to interpret as you want. And then I guess I don't understand why there's a Slytherin. I don't know enough about Harry Potter, but they clearly frame it as like the black magic wizard camp.
Oh, yeah.
And even Harry Potter says in there, he says something like, all the bad wizards, they have all come from Slytherin. So he doesn't say that being in Slytherin means that you're going to be a black magic wizard, but if you are a black magic wizard, you were in Slytherin, why don't they just shut that particular frat down and just have, you've got 3 other houses to work with?
When you get through all of these movies, which I highly suggest, you will understand a lot more. But it is actually like him being invoked by like a dead guy that had a spirit left, right? So, I mean, that's pretty interesting. There has been one good person that I know of for sure, at least is good, maybe wasn't always in Slytherin, and you will see that later. I don't want to ruin things for you. So
I appreciate it. All right. Well, you can let's let you get started. I'll throw in other observations, like for example, even at Hogwarts, the gym teacher is a lesbian. I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah, well, we got to stick with, the way it's all lined up, right?
Are there obvious lesbian gym teachers in Mormon schools?
Oh, for sure. Mine totally was when I was, because it's just
okay. So you don't have to hide it or anything. It's don't ask, don't tell policy for the most part, or what?
I mean, nowadays I think anything goes, but back in the day, who knows?
Really? So if you were mainstream Mormon, you went into temple, anything goes?
Not at the temple. No. I'm just saying, like, if they were Mormon, right? There's all different factions of Mormon. There's goody two shoes Mormons. We call that, doing all the right things and blah, blah, blah. And then we got the Jack Mormons. So you definitely can't go to temple. No, you'd have to lie. No, none of that.
Do they ask you? Will they actually ask you at some point? Really?
They'll ask you if you are morally clean. And so that means no cheating on your wife, no having homosexual relationships. You're not even supposed to masturbate, all the things. And you have to start this business when you're 12. Start answering these questions to a guy alone in a room as a 12-year-old girl or boy. Yeah. So that's fun.
You're not selling it.
Yeah,
If you ever
no.
want to sway away, just lead with that too. You got to tell an old dude whether or not you're masturbating when you're 12.
And not just yes or no. They want details.
Well, of course.
So that's probably going in a nasty book they sell somewhere is my guess. And they have those desks for a reason. Who knows? But yeah, not comfy. Not comfy. Not at all. So my little study on this whole thing, this first card is a tarot card, the Magician, right? And we see some little things here that the Magician has that are kind of important with magic. And I think this parallels our buddy Joseph a lot. So I threw that in there because it cracked me up. This picture, as you guys may or may not know, I have gone over this at times with other presentations, is the skull and bones photo, which this next guy, who probably has figured out all the bones because he is 100 years old, Russell M. Nelson, the current prophet, seer, and revelator of the church, is holding Joseph Smith's supposedly real hat. And then notice the inkwell on the table. I wonder if that's real too. I wonder if that's some of his magical.
Can you go to that skull and bones photo too? Because I actually have a little bit of extra insight on this particular photo, which is really unique, and that's that the skull and bones on the table is, I believe it's the Thor skull. It has the name Thor etched into the back of it, but you can see how it's cut out on the top, and it has a hinge. This was their ballot box. So just like Masons have this concept of blackballing someone, the way that they do is they'll go around a room and everyone anonymously puts an item into a ballot box, and if there's a single black ball at the end of this vote, they open it up, they see one black ball, then that person doesn't get in, or the vote doesn't go through, and that's why it's called blackballing. It only takes one person to kind of like throw a turd in the punch bowl. Now no one drinks from it. That's black. And this is how the skull and bones took that Masonic voting ritual, or maybe even Bavarian Illuminati, depending on where you want to go with it. But this was their ballot box. So you would actually put your vote into the skull of this Thor guy, and then that's where they would count it all from. So, and I think this thing went at auction in like the 2000s.
See the name
Thor right there on the left.
Yeah, I didn't notice that. Huh, that's wild. I did not know that.
This is one of very few relics from inside the Skull and Bones tomb that got auctioned in public. I think almost all the other stuff stays in private collections.
Yeah, I'm wondering why they would get rid of it at all. That seems counterproductive to me. But I mean, if you're into that, right? Wouldn't you want to keep it? Maybe they made a new one. Are you still there? Sorry.
You're here.
Uh-oh. Okay. Remember, now that I'm presenting, I can't see you, so sorry.
Okay.
Oh, it's going to be extra fancy and get crazy on me now. All right. So, as I stated, this Russell M. Nelson, I am interested.
Member, by the way, that's what that link was.
Yep, and I'm curious about this inkwell here. I'm after I learned a little bit about Solomonic magic, I went, wonder if they showed more than just that hat from the little deep dark dungeons. Also, Lucy Mack Smith is quoted as talking about drawing a brack circles and different things all day, or just not, I don't think she said circles, but anyway, she said drawing magic circles and a brack. And so all day I was like, this is funny to me because I had no idea. And I'm sure you don't want to talk a whole lot about that.
Well, I haven't read every 1800s Masonic book yet.
Sure. You knew. I was like, you could have just told me. Geesh. I was doing all this research. And so when Lucy Mack Smith refers to House of a Brack or what she was doing there, it also makes me wonder because, Mormonism has always been made fun of for letting women in, right? Like it's the family fun masonry. And I also wonder if she was already learning and doing things then. It would not surprise me because she was known as a healer and a folk magic practitioner. So makes me think probably yes. And that was probably like an inside joke to her friend, but
and
can't
this
prove.
goes back super far, and I guess this is more into these categories don't always fit, but I would say like Scottish righty kind of stuff, because this is like a Western thing. This came from an Aramaic phrase that it said it was something about manifesting words into reality. So the whole premise, the original premise of where abracadabra comes from, and I don't know what the original word was without looking it up, but it was that if you said this over and over, that you were actually helping manifest reality or taking some active participation or intent in it. And this is, I think that's why this gets cited as such a magical phrase, is one of the earliest recordings of, if you put intent, you can manifest reality through just thought forms. So that's where this is comes from, and I think that would, any reference to it anytime in the future, it would basically be a reference to, within this book or within this type of thinking, is going to discuss the potential for manifesting reality.
And I mean, obviously they were messing with it and had figured some things out, because she directly references it. And that little excerpt is in a letter that she wrote, and it is on display at the Mormon Museum. So, I mean, I didn't make it up. It's real. So this little guy hasn't come up too often. Have you seen this one?
No, it was like a polished snail.
Well,
what
this
am I looking
is
at?
a
Mirror?
rendition of the greenstone. Apparently, Joseph Smith had a greenstone that we didn't all know about. Originally, it was sold to him by Joseph to Joseph by Jack Belcher, and Jack Belcher notes it that he had actually used it. I mean, just like the first account vision, some people say it's 4, some people say it's 8. So I mean, it's all over the place. Same thing with the stones. Some people are like, "Oh yeah, he had 2." No, he had, I don't even know how many he had, but it was plenty. And this one is referenced as one.
And this is going back to like that same rant that I guess I'll just like always bring up. But does that mean that even if Joseph Smith was the only prophet we're allowed to have, like the young one or whatever, that has, brand new like religion founding ideas, what about the stones? Are there Mormon kids finding stones today that could potentially lead? Because it also seems that no, like we've already found all the stones that we're going to find. Coincidentally, Joseph Smith got a hold of all of them, and there is never anyone's going to find another stone that does what Joseph Smith did. It seems so specific, moment in time and geography, like all of the planets align just for him for this to happen.
Well, there was other people that found other stones. That leads perfectly into my next picture. This is Jacob Whitmer's seeing stone. And the reason why these rules got changed, like you're referencing, is because Joseph Smith had it. They all were finding stones. Jacob Whitmer found this stone, most likely from a Native American burial site, because it's a trapezoidal gorget, and they used it to like cover their throats in battle. And so it was neck armor, basically. And there's pictures that are referencing this with Native Americans.
So
and
it came with the holes in it. That was how you wore it around your neck?
Yep, to protect their throats. And so there are photos, and I didn't find it till last minute. I wanted to put it in there, of the Native American people that wear it. And so he had that stone. And then the next one is Hiram Page, and he had a stone. But here's the thing about Hiram, and I think this is where Joseph got persnickety. We'll say that's a fun word like Harry Potter would use, right? Hiram found this stone, and he wrote 16 pages after he got it that were supposedly revelation. And Joseph Smith got totally pissed, and he's like, "No more stones. It's only me. I want that all destroyed. You can't do that." And throw it out. And he made all of them grind their stones to dust and get rid of them, just so you guys know.
Did he grind any of his stones in solidarity or no? Because his were special Joseph Smith stones.
Yeah, because these are all renditions. Well, the other one was a different copy of like a Native American one, because multiple Native American tribes still used them. And then, so yeah, interestingly enough. And then this is also a different stone I'd never even heard of. Joseph's mud seer stone. I had no idea he had one of those.
Looks like a slug or something.
I know, it looks gross kind of, and it looks like a turd, You got a turd in your pocket. That brings a whole new meaning to that, doesn't
What?
it?
Okay. See, I guess I was just thinking that these were like those rubbing stones you keep in your pocket, and like, but these are very intricate. Like these aren't just
Yeah.
stones; these are talismans.
Oh, they definitely are. And the church, well, you know why they call them stones. I mean, they don't want you looking into that. They don't want you to start putting two and two together. Like that's just not something that they're willing to get
But we could
into.
accurately say that, like all of Joseph Smith's seer stones, these were magical talismans. These are Joseph Smith's magical talismans.
Yes. I believe so. Yes. From what I've studied about magic at this point, yeah. About Solomonic magic to be
Would I be
specific.
asked to leave temple if I said that out loud?
You might just be looked at wrong. Like you have to remember these people are
I
like
could be like,
very
really? Is no one else seeing this? Like in the middle of
they'd be
these
very passive aggressive to you. They would be like, "Oh, that's a nice like thought, but yeah, we're going to go now." Like they don't and then they would talk mad crap on you behind your back. So just so
when do
you
you have a chance to speak your mind in temple, if at all? Just before it starts and
So
after it ends, or what?
after it ends, if you have questions, because I did have questions and I asked that same question. I said, okay, if I have a question, you're never supposed to talk about this stuff outside of the temple. So when can I ask a question and how? And they said, oh, you have to do it in the celestial room, but you're also supposed to be super quiet in there. And then everybody kind of leaves quickly after because your butt's numb from sitting for 2.5 hours. So yeah, it doesn't work out very good. And then also it's going to go in your folder. You know, they keep a folder on each person. And if you
As you
masturbated
should.
there,
I
yeah,
mean,
they
and
wrote that down.
honestly, at this point, any organization that is formed after the year 1800 should be keeping documents on all of its members. That's what every other one does.
I mean, they definitely do. It's like the whole Scientology thing, right? And then they use it against him later. I don't know. But yeah, this particular one is called the Bitumen Seer Stone. And I actually think it was maybe slightly more important than they play it off to be because Bitumen is Emma Smith's next husband. Okay. And he was the one that had this in his possession through his family line and she never got rid of it until she died. Like they took it after she died, but she never got rid of it. And I find that
And do you know what
interesting.
these things did? Like, did this one interpret or find something special, or
No, it doesn't say.
is
No.
there is that was that a concept that Joseph Smith was like, oh, if I got to find gold today, we're bringing out the green one, or if I got to find a scroll, we're bringing out the red one? Was there any rhyme or reason to when you would, pick a certain caliber of stone?
They said the brown one was his favorite one, but I find that like hard to believe, which I think I hope I put a picture of that one. This is another rendition of the green
That looks
stone.
like amber.
Yeah. And they called it the green stone. So I don't know for sure. And these books from this guy, this Rick Grunder, whatever books, $2,000 if you want to find out about Mormonism from him. So holy cow.
Is he an ex-mo or a current mo?
See, I don't have $2,000 to spend on the books, so I'm not I'm not sure. But I do know they were controversial at the time that they came out, and there's, like, a bunch of volumes of them, I think 5. I didn't put the picture of the brownstone in here because it's so well, like, photographed everywhere, and there's also a white stone, which only has a rendition, which looks and has been described as quartz, and that one is locked up in the temple. They say that no one has ever people have seen it, but no one has ever been allowed to photograph it. And the brown one, I think, may possibly have been his favorite one only because Emma made him a little pouch for it. And it looks like the most easy to carry. As I'm looking at all of these stones, I'm like, that one seems like nice and smooth and like easier to carry. But he sucked at finding treasure. So yeah, I think he was up to some other things.
Well, wasn't it the stones that were finding the treasures anyway?
I mean, depending on what you're doing. I mean, I think he was doing a lot of things that were Solomonic, which is all about finding treasure.
Well, objectively, let's take all the bias and all the speculation out. Did Joseph Smith ever objectively find treasure at any point? Or is it
No.
all based on he said that he found it and then here's what it is, but I can't show you?
He had been actually, that was why he was taken to court was because he didn't find treasure, and people said he sucked so bad at it that they literally fined him in a court of law for not finding.
So he wasn't even going out there and finding like old boots or anything. He just wasn't finding anything at all until he started finding gold plates that turned into a religion. But other than that, he wasn't finding money on the ground or like old discarded silver tins or anything.
As far as I'm aware, the only money he ever found was yelling at Martin Harris, and then that was his cash cow.
I mean,
Yeah.
potato. If you're a treasure seeker and you find someone to fund your treasure seeking expedition and they don't realize they are the treasure, I mean, I feel like he was still a treasure hunter in that regard.
I mean, if we count it that way, he was pretty good, you know?
Well, there you go. You heard it from Heidi. This was another episode of Monthly Mormon Monday. No, you can keep going.
Yeah. So this is the bloodstone. This was actually said to have been given to Thomas Brown by Captain Cook in the 1700s. The stone descended into the Brown family, and then they gave it to Brigham Young, who carried it and wore it everywhere he went. So he wore this all the time, and there's actual pictures. This is in a museum. This is Brigham Young and wearing it. You can see it. And also, just to throw this out there, spiritualists consider bloodstone to be a stone of transformation and personal growth. It is believed to help release negative emotions and past traumas. I don't think that worked for him because he was pretty, from what I've heard, not nice. Allowing individuals to move forward on their spiritual journey. Bloodstone is also thought to help enhance spiritual awareness and connection to the divine. So there's that.
So this is Brigham Young, I'm assuming. Brigham
Yes.
Young is basically our Dumbledore. I know that the times and the ages and the relationships don't work as well, but he's the older, crustier one with the beard and the magical talismans and books and wands. So that just
I would
by
say
default makes him.
he's more Snape. He's not nice. He's definitely not nice. Dumbledore's nice. When you get to know Dumbledore
Whoever we're
more,
looking at now looks like Snape, like the haircut and everything.
Yep. Yeah. I think this is Brigham Young when he was younger.
Okay. All right. I stand corrected. Brigham Young is Snape. We're slowly putting together who is who. So we've got Joseph Smith as Harry Potter. And then I guess Emma Smith would be Hermione. Right?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Okay. And now we've got a Snape. All right. I'm keeping track.
So Brigham was kind of a crusty guy. They say he ruled with an iron fist. But honestly, I have to tell you, like, I don't believe that if Oliver Cowdery, who was, there was a fight over who was going to be the next prophet because Joseph died and didn't really have a lineup. This is why there's such a big lineup now, because there was a whole huge problem because he always assumed it would be his son that took over. Well, his son was 10 when he died. So he did take over and start the RLDS, the Reformed Church. And then Brigham Young and Oliver Cowdery had kind of like a presidential debate type situation. They literally got up and gave speeches and spoke and did all these things to try and make their case. And Cowdery really was the one that most people thought would take it, but he was sick when they did his speeches. And so he didn't do as well. He didn't do as well and wasn't charismatic enough. And Brigham Young was like, this is what we're going to do. This is the plan. And people felt safe about that because you have to remember this church was just barely going. And these people had already been ran out of a whole lot of places. They were definitely
like a Trump versus Biden, the original matchup.
Seriously. Yeah. And so, Brigham took it because people wanted to know what to do and where to go. And I think they were pretty sick of getting ran out of places. And I think he was probably a little more safe.
Okay. The make Mormonism great again. He started pushing that.
Yeah, he was make Mormonism great again. There you go. Too bad it didn't work. Ha ha. He was too busy finding wives that he had to procreate and replenish the earth with less than one child per wife. Anyway. Yeah, he wasn't in it to win it on that. But I do find these interesting. These are on the Nauvoo temple. Pentacles and pentagrams are on the temple. And not only are they on the temple, but they're inverted as well. And so that's kind of interesting as well.
So this one actually has a lot of religious history in like European churches too, because even in Catholicism, I believe the 5 wounds of Christ were represented as a pentagram, essentially, and even an inverted pentagram. And the inverted pentagram, based on my Rockefeller understanding in the public, But the Eliphas Levi, he's the one that basically stated that the inverted pentagram made it evil as opposed to not evil. And this might have even been an inversion of the 5 wounds of Christ. So it might have been an inversion of something holy and turned it unholy.
Not in this photo. This photo, I'll give it to you. But this one is in the Seal of Solomon. And this, so you can have seals to protect you from spirits or to bring you spirits. There's so much. I haven't read the whole clavicula yet. Like, it's a lot. There's a lot of things going on with these books of Solomon, but I have read enough to know, I don't think it was an accident the way they made this window. And I kind of started, I have a theory, but I want to get through this stuff first and then I'll tell you my theory, but it scared me. I'll be honest, it scared me. So put this in your back pocket, you guys. This is to bind spirits in. Okay. So it was a little, I'll talk about it, but yeah. So this all-seeing eye is also on the temple, which, this one is not as demonized. I think we all know that there's multiple, it can be good, it can be bad. Same thing, right? People come in, they make it bad. I mean, you can tell a lot about this, I'm sure, but it's on our dollar, it's on our money, it's Masonic. So I don't know what all you can say about the all-seeing eye other than God's eye is always on you, right? So anything?
Someone's eye is on you.
Someone's eye. All right. Somebody's always watching. We'll go with that. How about that? I found this one really interesting, not just because of the sunstone. It's called a sunstone. The sun, I used to think, and there's another slide coming up, that Joseph Smith and Brigham Young were crazy. And a lot of people say, oh, they're crazy, or they did a lot of drugs or hallucinogenics and blah, blah, blah. This is why it's all crazy. No, the more you study about Hermeticism and Solomonic magic, this all makes a lot more sense. And so this is going to come into play more with the sun part, but I did want to talk about the trumpets. And so in Solomonic magic, trumpets and bells are both noted for Solomonic grimoires. They actually help with convincing the spirits with these sonorous blasts to come around. So this is in the Clavicula Solomonus. And the trumpets are really important, which brings a whole new meaning to the Moroni statue. As I was studying all this, I just went, oh my gosh, like what is happening? Like, this is crazy. And so, like, I think it's funny that they've been able to keep it on, undercover for so long. I mean, it's everywhere. They don't really hide anything. It's kind of right there. Although I will tell you, they're redoing the temple right now in Salt Lake City. And I do think they're going to scrub all these symbols. I think they're going to be gone.
You'll just wake up one morning, they're all just gone, ground to dust, or what?
They have put up a fence everywhere around the whole temple that it blacks it out so you cannot see what they're doing. And I think that they're going to state that it probably wasn't safe and they had to restructure it because that's what they did before. Because we have a fault line here. And every time they want to do some sketchy stuff, the fault line is what they use. So not just them, some other things too that were really weird in a high school. So yeah, I don't know. But I find that interesting. So we also have other people still in the church doing things. Oliver Cowdery was very into divining rods. Also, water witching and this kind of stuff was practiced by the Joseph Smith family. This wasn't not known. Like, they were known all over town as this. So, but this was the photo I found for Oliver, and they talk all about this. This is folk magic, right? So again, another pentacle. Again, notice where it's at and how they put it. It's very purposeful with these round windows around it. And these are just magical, fun things that I found. So this little picture I made, because we're going to talk about this too, I think, coming up soon. But the salamander story is so interesting to me the more I study about magic, because it's a lot different than what I thought it was. And so when you're learning about what supposedly happened, okay, from this whole toad story, salamander story, whatever, they're going to talk about, this toad, but we got Hoffman that comes in and kind of wrecks it with the salamander. Why would he do that? Right? Two reasons. One is, for money. Okay. I've also said before, I don't think it was just about that. And there's a story that goes along with this that will say, I'll just go ahead and say now, but he said that this is Chase's testimony in court with that treasure digging court case that I was talking about. His testimony and affidavit states he saw in a box something like a toad, which soon assumed the appearance of a man, and it struck him on the side of his head. So this whole thing makes you wonder, okay, what's going on here? Did he just not say it correctly and it was a salamander? There's also another person, Benjamin Saunders, says he refers in court to the presence of an amphibian of some kind and an angel's appearance. So toads are often associated with black magic, sorcery, witchcraft in Anglo-American occult traditions. So also the salamander would clean this up for the church because they're not a huge fan of this story, right? I mean, I made these because I couldn't get it to punch him because it's violent, apparently. So this is kind of his rendition of it was in the box. And so that's just from that testimony there. And I just find it interesting that they made it more of a salamander, because if you know anything about the Knights Templar and different things, it's totally associated with like old philosophers, just different stuff about this, and that the salamander actually is about transmutation as well, that it's associated with Paracelsus and in alchemy as a symbol of the soul's connection with fire. Transformation to metamorphosis. Aristotle also called them the mastery over fire because they are impervious to fire. It represents immortality, rebirth, passion, and the ability to withstand flames, which is work with them to help rebalance things. So this gets into dark versus light magic. And this is why I truly believe Mark Hoffman was set up, because even though he was doing these shady deals and he was swindling the church, I think they figured it out before the salamander thing. And I think they went along with it because they published it in their Ensign magazine. And I think they did that on purpose because it cleans up a lot of the dark magic behind this and with familiars. And if you guys know anything about familiars, witches familiars, you'll know like a toad is one of them. So we go back to Harry Potter, right? Remember that in the Harry Potter?
Which part of the Harry Potter? We're talking about the first movie?
I believe it's in the first movie. I hope it is. But anyways, where they're picking their pet to take with them. Yeah, I think it's in the first one. And so they all get to bring one pet, and a toad is on the list. And so they can bring a toad with them. And these are often, like I said, called witches familiars. And so, they work with witches. They can do like their bidding. They can, carry out things with familiars. Have you heard about that?
I guess I absolutely, I mean, I know exactly the scene when they go and he gets the owl and the owl becomes his familiar, but I guess I wasn't paying close enough attention. Does he pick the owl, or does the owl pick him, or does someone else say like this is going to be your familiar? Because I can't imagine who would walk into a room and see all these exotic animals and be like, I'll go for the toad. Like it seems like you'd be assigned the toad.
You only have so many that you can pick from. And I think it is like a mutual thing. He, with his owl, did not, you're right, it flew in, but other people brought animals with them. And so I believe it was Hermione that brought her cat. And so, but somebody did have a toad. And so I found that kind of funny and interesting. But like I said, in witchcraft, this has kind of been a long-standing knowledge that, familiars kind of work for witches and help. Well, and I do find it interesting that he turned into a man. So
the salamander one in particular too is most interesting to me because it was in a lot of alchemical texts, and
yeah.
The way that I guess you would read it alchemically is when a salamander comes up, that is an insinuation that you're supposed to use fire in your recipe, which is also why the salamander represents transmutation. Because if you see it's like, and then add the, I'll just make something up that's not real, but like add the legs of a salamander, it's like, oh, add whatever concoction that I've got, add that to fire and let it heat up so it turns into this next substance. And the whole reason that that even exists is because even in more, I guess, primitive societies or even like non-occult, if you were throwing logs into a fire and there's salamanders that live in the freaking logs, they would throw a log in and see salamanders rush out of the fire, thinking that either they were of the fire or that somehow they were in there and you like rustled them out of their nest, and therefore they're in, because it does seem pretty easy to prove that salamanders are not impervious to fire. There are some that apparently have like a mucus that they can coat their body with, which makes them resistant. I guarantee you, you take a salamander and you throw it in a fire, it will die. Like there's no salamander on the planet that is impervious to actual fire. So it always seemed like this is one of those alchemical code words so that you wouldn't have to either give it up, or it would be like a special word that if I heard someone over there talking about salamanders, like, oh, I guess he actually knows about alchemical fire and transmutation.
Right. And then on top of it, they also are known to guard treasure. And so, any kind of reptile, lizard, toad, etc., are apparently known in this whole realm to be, guardians of treasure. And so, like all of this together seems very interesting as far as like the magical component, the alchemical component. Who's talking about this? Like Paracelsus is talking about this. It just brings in a different vibe to it, and it almost makes it feel less witchy, right? Like if it's a salamander, in my opinion. It's
It's universal, because this was all, especially we're talking Paracelsus, because he specifically was going up, but like his name Paracelsus means above Celsus, and Celsus was the head of, I guess, like the Christian medical establishment. He was the Fauci of, Paracelsus's time, and Paracelsus comes out and names himself better than that guy. Like that's his name is better than the other guy. So whenever you hear the name Paracelsus, that's directly referenced to. So he was saying like everything the church has been teaching everyone is all wrong. The remedies don't work. Like all these crazy things they're telling you. And he's like, drink this poison instead. And people are like, what? but that was part of it, is that his magical occult talk. I don't think he had any. I don't know. I don't know if I would be comfortable in being like Paracelsus was a black wizard magician, because if anything, historically, he absolutely moved ahead real medicine and things that really helped people in the long run versus what the church was doing. The church would have just run everyone into the ground.
No, I'm not saying he was, but I'm saying that he was really tied with alchemical stuff. And then they have been known on a separate note for witches familiars. So what I'm saying is I find it interesting that all of this kind of plays together, and they were trying to make it be more about like, oh, Paracelsus said this and he's a stand-up guy. And also this is like associated with, better things if it's not a toad, right? So I feel like they let that story go because like Rosicrucianism was associated with salamanders. Paracelsus is, Aristotle is these better things. So they're like, hey, let it be, like, let it switch up. Like, you help us out, we'll help you out. We'll give you this nice, whatever Bible you want, Hoffman, if you can help us get this switched. Because why would their PR people publish it in their magazine and blow it up to like, they blew that crap up. And so they wouldn't normally do that unless they'd really researched it. I mean, I don't think they would. There's been plenty of stories and things that came out where they held on to it and then we find out later, oh, no. But this they printed in their own magazine. And I think it was to make it be associated with the salamander because these other people have cred. You know what I'm saying? Instead of a toad, because toads are not, that's not good.
Salamander is an upgrade from a toad. I'll definitely give you that.
Yes. And so they're more associated with darker magic, witches, blah, blah, blah. And so honestly, I do.
If you had to figure out a thing, like an animal that would fit inside of this box with this gold plate, I can't think of a better noble creature than a salamander. Every other animal that would fit in this small area is all like vermin or bugs or they would die inside the box, whereas a salamander would actually survive in here. I don't know. I can't.
Right.
Like, you wouldn't put a bird in here; the bird would die.
Right. No. And even Joseph Smith Jr. and Sr. both said the presence of some kind of amphibian, so they weren't sure, and then an angel came. So I think it's interesting when we talk about this angel, coming and punching Joseph Smith because he tried to touch the plates the wrong way. And I'm like, okay, so this definitely sounds like I've heard other stories of familiars on weirder podcasts, like, Bigfoot podcast type stuff. And they had people on that spoke about this kind of stuff, that this kid was chasing a frog and went into the forest and it turned into a man. So, I mean, Joseph Smith's not the only one. And that guy ended up pledging. Too? It didn't, but he actually ended up pledging to Baal and having his body tattooed with a Baal tattoo. So that's not good. But yeah. So long story short, I still think getting rid of the toad was a good idea. And I do think it was planned up. I do. And I think Mark Hoffman knows it. I think they told him.
For the record, the toad story and striking the man, just so I get this straight, because repetition is vital to like really buried in the memory, but it's a toad first, then it turns into a man, then it hits him, right? Like, there's no version of this where the toad punches Joseph Smith. Okay.
So this is the testimony. He saw in a box something like a toad, which soon assumed the appearance of a man and struck him in the side of his head. So definitely like in order. So
yeah, what spell is that? Totus Maximus or something, and it pops into a person?
Toadstool. So I put this one in here also, since we're talking about magic and witchcraft. We got to talk about mirrors, right? I have real pictures of the mirrors we're going to talk about. These are called forever mirrors, or they face each other. They're considered a portal. This is what witches use them for. And mirror magic is a known magical practice of witchcraft. And this is what you do kneeling over an altar when you get married. And you look into these mirrors and you see yourselves go on forever. But knowing what I know now, and you've already been through all the other stuff and you've got your little get up on with your little green apron, you don't get married in your wedding dress. Well, if you do, you have to put all the crap over it. And
what's the crap?
The veil, the one-breasted robe, the fig leaf apron, your little white slippers. What else? A sash around your waist. I think that's everything. And for the guys, they get the baker's hats. They look like little bakers. And so you are kneeling over the altar and you're talking about being married for time and all eternity while you look into these forever mirrors. These are multiple pictures from real temples. They're not the best quality, but this is what we got. Every time I kept sending myself stuff, they were blocking me from downloading. So that was fun. This one's better. So these are real. This is the real rooms that you would get married in. And there's altars right in front of these mirrors. And I couldn't help but think, okay, so I'll tell my little part of my hypothesis here. If the stars and the seals, if those seals they're invoking, and some of the stuff we do in there is invoking spirits to come to the temple, and then they're trapping them there, right, with these other seals that bind.
This is how Ghostbusters work, is they capture the ghost, they bring him back, and they put him in the ghost vat.
And what if all of this is going on and they cannot get out, and then when you go do this mirror magic, they can come in, right? And no one else is in the mirror. It's just you two. There's other people in the room, but only you two are kneeling at the altar. So what if this is how you get assigned certain, demon, dead people, whatever, necromancy, or lower level, we'll call them intelligences, because that's what they call them. Anyways, I don't think archangels would bother with us really, but this is how people get attachments, right? And so it made me wonder this because I definitely felt some kind of way about it after I got out. And then you have these markings over the orifices that are open in your body, right? Your umbilicus, your nipples. They don't say anything about the growing, but it makes you wonder. Um, anyway,
I don't know
that would
about
be
yours, but my nipples are not open to anything.
well, they technically are. They do have an opening, and men can actually make breast milk and leak breast milk and or
Well, in
other fluid.
2024, yeah, I guess anyone can
No,
do anything
no.
that they want.
No, not like that. Like in real. So if you have an actual hormonal imbalance, you can actually leak fluid as a man that's never ever had anything altered in his body ever. That
So the
was born a man.
question is, I have nipples. Can you milk me, Greg? He could have been like,
Right?
actually, you could.
Actually, maybe. Yeah, if you had enough of that certain hormone. But yeah, so this is interesting and it made me think. I was like, and the eyes are also a direct portal. Like, and if you read about the eyeball, it's a whole thing like in occult magic, but I can't go into the eyeball. It will take us all day. And it was really interesting to me. It kind of scared me a little bit knowing a little bit more than I don't know at all. Obviously, you could study this stuff till you die, like even if you live till 100. I don't know that you would ever know it all. It's really a lot. So I am not some big person on Solomonic magic. I know a little bit. If you guys want a great book or books, check out Dr. Steven Skinner. He's got some great books on it. So that's going to be one of my next purchases on books. So I've talked to him a little bit. He's a nice guy. So on this Seal of Solomon magic, all of this is exactly what I truly, truly, truly believe that Joseph Smith was mostly into because of this statement. He at least had this book, The Key of Solomon, book 1, Spells for Finding Hidden Treasure, Finding Love and Summoning Angels. Well, we just summed up the Book of Mormon. We're done. Right? I
I
mean,
guess so, yeah. He was looking for treasure, found love, conned people into paying for his wedding and his whole courtship, and then summons angels to make the religion. I guess this is like the recipe for creating your own version of Mormonism.
so you definitely, even if you guys don't believe that he was a practitioner, which there are many practitioners of Solomonic magic today, they just don't shout it from the rooftops, but you can find podcasts and different things on it. Actually, Glitch Bottle is a really good one. And What Magic Is This is a really good one. So there were multiple things about Solomonic magic on there. And I just found it really fascinating that some of this stuff, it correlated so well. And this is a story I'm sure you won't talk to me about, but maybe you can. People don't always know. I did a podcast last night, and sometimes I don't realize that people don't know what you're talking about. So would you like to share the story of Solomon and his magical ring, or shall I?
Well, there's different versions of Sol. So first of all, there's a Masonic Solomon, which is not exactly the same as the biblical Solomon. And then there's also the Eastern Solomon, and he that's the one that I
Eastern.
think is the coolest one. The Eastern
Yeah.
Solomon, he had a magic ring, a Solomon seal, and this literally allowed him to have supernatural powers, and he could command over real animals and supernatural animals. So he could kind of like conjure these beasts up to kind of do his bidding. And people loved this story and this concept so much that they were like, we're going to take that Solomonic seal and we're going to say that it has magic power to do these other things. In the premise of masonry, it has way less to do with his seal and more to do with his temple, and that the temple was even more complicated because the seal, Solomon's seal, also the Star of David, which didn't belong to Solomon or David. These actually predate back to ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia. Even they have this exact same seal. So this has kind of like always been a universal, ubiquitous magic seal across different cultures. Solomon seal kind of gets the name and the Star of David, but in Masonry, it's Solomon's temple and the arrangement and the rooms and the proportions of one wall to another wall is supposed to have all these baked in mathematical formulas that all turn into gematria and that all reference ineffable name of God, and all sorts of different Masonic secrets. And I guess that's my interpretation of the Masonic version of Solomon, is they took all of Solomon's wisdom and they baked it into the floor plan of a building, so that if you knew how to read that floor plan, you could deconstruct it and reassemble all of Solomon's magic, incantations and all of his wisdom. But that's also goes along with the lost keys of masonry. That's an actual phrase, lost keys of masonry. And what do we have are like the keys of Solomon. So it's almost like it's baked in there, but someone forgot the password to get back into their highly secure document, and Masons have been trying to find that Bitcoin key for like the last 1,000 years.
That's their job, right? You're supposed to.
It's literally the job is to find the missing key in the ineffable name of God.
Yes. Yep. And so here we have just a few of these Solomonic keys. And these are, do you guys use these? Can I ask that? Are you practitioners of Solomonic magic when you're a Mason, or is that not automatic?
No, I mean, so the way that I've heard this explained to me by someone that was into magic is that the ritual themselves, the processions, the directions you walk in, like if you were to take a camera and track where everyone walked during a lodge ceremony, that technically some of those movements could be creating these magic sigils. But that said, there at no point in any that I've ever been to is it like, okay, and now we're going to bring out the magical sigils, and now we're going to bring out the tarot cards. We're all going to talking to the crystal ball. It's all very, very formal. It's like you always walk in that direction. You always stand there. It's almost like a Catholic mass where okay, stand, sit, pray, walk down here, do the little thing. And you just do that over and over. But imagine if you were to track where you're moving throughout the church and then been like, oh, that's a freaking Star of David. That's a freaking and that wouldn't surprise me either in Catholic mass, although usually they bring out the crackers and everyone just kind of rushes to the front however they can get there, so it's not as structured.
Right. And then this is when we're talking about practitioners, we're talking about people that know what they're doing, that are using magical instruments to do that, like either a wand or a Gandalf staff. We are talking about magical things that are taking place on purpose. It's very not on accident or not in just secret. They're a part of it, right? They're like a part. And so when we talk about Solomonic practitioners, that's what I'm talking about. So maybe Masonry is not like identically the same.
It wouldn't be identical. What would happen is that if you're into Solomonic magic, then you're going to be applying all the things happening in Lodge and being like, oh, that's like this aspect of Solomonic magic. But at no point does Masonry ever say what it is. Like, it's kind of up to everyone to interpret. And it's not like a faction because no one wears a pin or gives themselves a name, but there'll be the guys at Lodge that are like, oh, that dude's in the magic. Like, that guy's got a tarot deck at home guaranteed. And they're the ones that would know all of this. But the guy to your right might, like, he shows up for meatloaf and to get closer to the comptroller of the county. So it's sort of like this huge schism between the type of person that would care. Although you could make the argument that even the guy showing up for meatloaf is actively performing sigil magic, just unwittingly.
So, I mean, do they ever like recruit people specifically for that, or just
not allowed to? Masonry, or at least in America, you're not allowed to recruit.
Okay. No, I mean, for the magical part, they're already a Mason, and like, the guy that has the tarot deck or what, you know what I mean?
It's very volunteer based. Again, just for practical humans be doing human things. It's more like, hey, who wants to wake up early and drive down to this side of town at 7 a.m. on a Saturday, very inconvenient. You might not always get the magic guy. You might end up getting the meatloaf guy more times than not, because the magic guy's got a job and the magic guy's got other stuff going on.
He's got sigils to perform. Let's get real.
Yeah, he's got his own little temple thing. Like, I guess, and that's the other thing too, is that, and I'm sure there's other interpretations of this, but I've never got the impression that showing up to Lodge makes it more magical. Showing up to Lodge is more about making sure that everyone's still, like paying their dues and they're still kind of like in it. But
it's like the government end of it. Okay, it's like town hall.
If you're gonna do super magic stuff, you're doing the magic stuff at home probably.
Okay. So, I mean, this kind of stuff, he was definitely hiding a lot of, and you have to understand something, and then we'll get into this. I'll show the picture later. I can even say it now. Is the Joseph Smith, one of his great grandpas or something, was a part of the Salem witch trials against witches. So he was well aware of what could happen to you. Okay. So he knew he knew what was up. And oftentimes I think, right, like methinks he protests too much, right? Like maybe they were the ones and they were just like burning innocent people that had nothing to do with it, you know? So it does make you wonder, because he also takes a trip to Salem, Massachusetts, that we're going to talk about when I get to that slide.
Okay.
But interesting enough, this goes all over the place in Magicville, Witchcraftville, right? This little slide is the Dove Medallion, Masonic Dove Medallion. And they said this was Fortitude Lodge number 42. It was based out of New Brunswick, Canada. And it was owned by Smith and then later Brigham Young. And they said that it was unsure how it arrived in Smith's possession, actually, but they speculate the medallion could have a charm associated with Venus. So, just so you guys know, that's what they say about this. Like I said, none of this is provable other than we know it was owned by Joseph Smith. Then it went to Brigham Young. We know that much, but it is what it is. Any comments, Masonic comments?
No, just it looks sharp. It looks like I'd hurt myself touching that thing, whatever. I do see like the bird outline, but I can't really tell beyond that what bird. And so yeah, arcane arsenals, Masons are not like by like the rule book are not allowed to recruit, and it's not because of some mystical or special reason. It's because when Masons first came to America in particular, they were going door to door and like knocking on people's doors,
like the Mormons. Oh, they were Mormons.
They would go door to door and they would undersell each other. They'd be like, "I'll do it for $7," and the next guy would be like, "Oh, I'll do it for $6," and they wanted to eliminate that whole commercial, like people trying to sell things that didn't exist, because ultimately they would show up to lodge and be underwhelmed, and because they were sold this crazy vacuum cleaner that did it all, right? And you show up and it's like, oh, it actually sucks. So they realized that it was hurting them in the long run, so they made it kind of against the rules to recruit. Now, that doesn't mean that someone might come up to you and be like, "Hey, have you ever considered joining the Masons?" Or if you've got a family member or a friend and they might push you like, "Oh, go join it." But in terms of actual recruiting, there's no real such thing as like missionaries in Freemasonry. You're not allowed to go to strangers that you don't know and try and actively recruit. And it's almost discouraged from like pushing someone into it. You can ask them if they're interested. You can be like, "Oh, if you want to." But this is an American phrase in American Masonry is to be one, ask one. And that's basically a reference to this rule that you're not allowed to recruit. So, hey, if you want to be one, find one and then ask them about it. And then they're allowed to kind of sell you on it.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. So maybe this was like advertising, right? Back in the day. Like, I mean,
exactly what it was. It was door-to-door salesman, and that was just straight up advertising.
So Joseph Smith stole that idea for the missionaries, if it was him. Sending missionaries door to door. He was like, "Hey, let's do this." Just kidding. All right.
I mean, imagine if you never get visitors. It's like the inverse of Mormons now, where like the person that stops to talk to them, like, "Oh, I'm coming back to this house, 100%."
Well, it's pretty funny to me that he did the exact thing they said don't do, right? Don't do that. But hey, whatever. It worked. It worked for some time, actually. This thing keeps skipping. It doesn't want me to show you these spooky things. This is one of my favorite things that I found that were super creepy. So these are called coffin canes. And the coffin canes are a whole disgusting story. So Joseph Smith's body was moved multiple times and after he died, because just like his brother, right? They're digging people up again. And I'm like, this seems like such a disgusting thing, but whatever. And so they dug them up, him and his brother Hiram, and their crusty coffins, like all the gross juices in them and everything, they took and made these coffin canes out of them. They're called the canes of martyrdom. And
off of the coffin itself, like the wood of the coffin.
Yep. And then they made new coffins and they supposedly moved them, but I think they might have those bones. When you ask me about that, I'm like, well, we just don't know. They supposedly moved him upwards of 3 times. And so it's very possible they could have just kept getting in there and grabbing stuff. I don't want to speculate because at the top of this knob, I think I might have a picture of the knob. Let's see, maybe not. There is their hair that is braided in off of their dead bodies, braided into the knob.
Well, they're not using it.
That's so gross. That's like, and when you're talking about necromancy here and channeling and different things, I'm just like, oh my gosh. So they said they put a portion in the top of each, and as a relic of these noblemen, master spirits of the 19th century, and handed down through posterity. And that was from Wilford Woodruff, another prophet of the church. Some of these canes are still around today. The Church of Jesus Christ says they have 2 of the coffin canes, both of which are on display near Joseph and Hiram's death masks in the Heavens Are Open exhibit, Church History Museum. So this is real.
These are the literal magic wands. Like what other reason would you need or want to have a cane made from the coffin of your dead prophet unless you assume that it gains some kind of supernatural power, right?
Well, actually, there was another quote. I wished I wrote that down. There's another quote from one of the prophets that say that it's so important that, like, in the final days, it will be like a magic wand type situation. I'll find the quote, but yeah, it was a whole thing. And so, yeah, I'm sure they have more than 2, and I'm sure the most important ones are not in a museum. There is an underground. When I say underground, like caverns, like I'm serious. Like there are tunnels and they have vaults. The church has blown out the side of a mountain just for their genealogy. What do you think they did for Joseph Smith's dead stuff? A lot is my guess. So
I would assume at this point, and I'm just speculating here, so don't give me a strike, please, YouTube or anyone else. But I would assume that Mormons have tried to clone Joseph Smith at this point. They've got the resources.
Yeah.
They're enough into sci-fi that it wouldn't feel like it would be out of their wheelhouse, right? And all the motivation in the world to do it. If you're grinding his bones and his coffin down into magical talismans and plucking hair out of his head, why wouldn't you try and actually clone him if you're all into genes and everything? Like Mormonism, to their credit, is one of the more futuristic, forward-thinking religions on the planet.
I mean, they definitely were interested in weird stuff. And so I'm just like, okay, they definitely have, I think, the ability to do a lot of things. And funny enough that you brought that up. I don't know if I told you this, but I have a picture at the end that I could show of the vaults, or we could do a genealogy cloning show another time. But there is a lot of weird things going on. At the day that Diddy was arrested, every board member on 23andMe quit. And then it went bankrupt. And so I just find that interesting. And I think there's a lot of secrets at play. I'm not anyone big, so I wouldn't know, but I think it's interesting. That's for sure.
I would love to know how P. Diddy intersects and the freak offs with the Mormon temple. There's got to be at least one sort of connection amongst all those. I don't know if it means that P. Diddy is working with Mormons, but I guarantee at least one Mormon has been to a freak off.
Well, let's not forget about Mr. Famous Save the Children. I'm not going to say his name right now. Timmy
Ted,
Boy.
Tim. Oh, you just said it. There you go.
Boy. Yeah. I'm not going to say the last part, but I have found some interesting connections that I'm working on. So I'm just saying, yeah, there's some weird stuff going on. And all of these people that have been involved with the Diddy and the Epstein, and then Naomi Campbell in the middle, and other people that like connect these things, they all had one thing in common. They all had Save the Children type organizations. And when you go to see who they're, she got in trouble like the day after he got in trouble for like embezzling all the money from her Save the Children thingy. And I did a whole show on this on my Patreon because I was like, this is too good, because she connects both of them together. And so I'm sure that they all run in the same circle, because who better to traffic than kids that don't have anybody, right? They're saving the children. But that's just my guess. I would never say that on paper.
What does scales to shed mean? Like a snake or a dragon?
Well, we can talk about that. This is Joseph Smith's serpent cane. When we talked about the Gandalf stick, Joseph Smith sure had one. He had a snake stick, literally. And so if you notice, I mean, yes, this is his initials. If you find this, but also there's an upside down cross in it. One thing about Mormons is they hate crosses, just so you know. You can't wear a cross, you can't like a cross, you can't hang a cross, you can't be involved with a cross at all. And I find it really interesting that this is here. And when you try to find this up close photo, on almost every website but one, they've got it distorted and only in black and white. And then it says little things like, little is known about this cane, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, yeah, little is known. Here's the head of the cane. It is a literal snake. So he had a wand, but he had it in the form of a staff. So we've got a dagger. We've got a staff. Here's one of the coffin canes with his hair in it, with one of their hairs in it. And we've got all these magical relics. And that's the brownstone that I was talking about earlier. This is the white one that only has a rendition because the church locked it up and won't show it. And then we get into the layman's and the magical parchments, which I've done a lot of shows on, and the talismans. And like you and I both think, I definitely think a lot of these different things that he owned were talismans. And you can, according to witchcraft, store energy in not only rocks and spells and different things into crystals, rocks, and so forth. So, Joseph Smith was an admitted necromancer. Moroni was a dead guy, first of all, but also he said he spoke with 26 angels and or dead people. And a lot of his layman's that call down, they are calling for direct demons. So on this paper, it's going to decipher it at the bottom for you guys, because if we go through it, it'll be like one of my regular shows and it's super long. But you can see archangels and you can see different, sigils and bindings and different things. By the way, these things don't like to be bound at all, period. And it pisses them off. So every person I've ever read about doing Solomonic magic, if you don't know what you're doing, you probably really shouldn't do it, because
I'll do it right now. I'll do it right now on the live stream. If I knew what I was doing, I wouldn't know what to say yet. But if you want, you can put together like the scariest talisman that you would never ever, and I'll do it right here, thousands of miles away. So you're technically safe, I think, right? Or would you be in danger if I did it on a live stream and we were both on it?
I bet we wouldn't be able to do it, because, when I started sending myself a lot of these sigils just on my email, they banned it. They blocked it. They wouldn't.
I'm not afraid. I'll do it. I'll do sigil magic right now.
My gosh. Yeah, scary. Very.
And I just want to point out too, because someone in the comments mentioned that Jehovah's Witnesses don't do crosses either. And it actually makes sense. In fact, I've never understood growing up as a kid and seeing crosses everywhere in Catholic Mass. And all I could ever think, and I've heard this in a stand-up comedian, and I think KRS once said it on an album, but if you were Jesus and you came back, like this was the resurrection, right? You came back to earth again and you were going to free everyone. And you look around and everyone's wearing the thing that killed you. Like if you got shot with a certain gun and you came back and everyone's holding that gun, you'd be like, maybe they're not ready right now. And I understand not wanting to focus on the actual device, the torture device that was used to kill your savior, and turn that into the symbol of your savior. That in some ways that seems like the ultimate inversion.
But then the Eucharist is even worse then, if we talk about it that way. But I will say in the Bible, it talks about all this stuff, right? Like, and it says those who aren't about the cross are foolish or whatever. I don't know the exact verse, but I don't know. The Eucharist creeps me out too. Like, let's eat the dead guy. Like, that's even worse. I mean, transubstantiation, I don't know.
I mean, no, if I'm just sort of devil's advocate, I guess, for lack of a better phrase, maybe that's the best way to talk about Jesus, but devil's advocate, it's like, well, I'm not going to let some worm eat the body of Christ. Like,
Oh.
I'll eat it before some worm gets to it.
Oh man, I don't have the stomach for it. I don't know that I could do
In some Marco
Oh.
Polo wrote that in some cultures it was seen as a sign of disrespect to not eat your elders because you were just letting all the wisdom and everything they had ever been through just deteriorate and never live again. And that was one form of like living through you, was to literally consume them and they would live through you. This is
Oh,
what
that
led to
sounds
Kuru. That's the premise that led to like mad cow disease essentially.
Yeah, that sounds not good. This sounds like we're getting into Diddy stuff.
As long as you don't eat the brain, it seems like it's totally fine.
Ugh, sounds bad. Sounds not good to me. Also, just so people know, in these Solomonic magics, when you're doing this, apparently, that if it's an open like this, how there's not anything around it, that means there's a relationship and it's a working relationship with this particular spirit and or angel. So just so people know that. So he was familiar with these things, because even this outline is not a circle. This isn't bound for Raphael. And so I'm just saying, like, he knew what he was doing. That's all. Um, and I think it's funny that people try to say he was a stupid farm boy. It really pisses me off because he was obviously more learned than most people about a lot of things. So I don't buy that for one red second. There's no way.
Yeah, so
Um,
these ones strike me as like the most classical version of Enochian sigil magic, especially the one on the bottom right, because they would tend to, you would pair it with one of these magical squares. So it's almost like I don't know if this is how this one exactly works, but on that bottom right, if you took that symbol and you put it directly on top of that little grid above it and rotated it, wherever the circle starts is like where you put your pen down, and then you trace it through the different numbers of the letters, and it's supposed to spell something out or go through a certain number of numbers, and then it ends. And that's usually what creates that sigil shape, is the path of like it's almost like a connect the dots. It's not even
mm.
like super mystical because the sigil doesn't mean anything unless you know what magic square the sigil corresponds with.
Well, there's like a whole thing for the Solomonic magic. Let's see if I put it in here. And I think I did, but it may not have let me download. And it had all of the characters in it already and what they meant. They were actually super precise when it came to this. And they were like very into like the day, the hour, the day of the week. It's super precise. And I don't think I put it in because it blocked it. And so, yeah. I had it originally put in there, but it is not by chance at all with these particular things because they were very precise about these squares, and this all goes into the keys of Solomon. So if you guys look up, the different things in there, it'll show, but it literally, when they're praying to certain things or want certain things, it's very specific, like on these tables, and they have all this written out by like the hour, the day. There's basically a demon, an angel, a whatever for each hour, each day, each everything. So yeah, pretty wild, but it's very specific. So uh, on this
And
one,
there's not that much separation between, I mean, a couple centuries, right? But John Dee, I think, died in the early 1600s, and Joseph Smith is born in the early 1800s. So there's only 2 centuries separating the work of John Dee and then Joseph Smith finding all this.
yeah. Yeah. And I think it was, there were people that would have kept that, when we get into the 6th and 7th books of Abraham, they have really nothing to do with Abraham and a whole lot to do with other things. And they were hiding things to get it out of there, because King
Well,
James was going to burn it all. I mean, for real,
well,
you
someone
know?
right now, like a Mormon in 2024, reading the Book of Mormon would be about the same time differential as Joseph Smith reading John Dee when he was a little kid.
Right. Right. So they would know. you know, and all of this stuff would be carried on with these people as they immigrate in. So, I mean, I don't think he was stupid, and I don't think he was illiterate or anything. I mean, it just almost makes me laugh. This is just another example of one of the
Well, this is the
layman's.
part that frustrates me, I guess, the most, where if there was is there a sect of Mormonism that's like, hey, we actually are doing sigil magic in here. Come on down, like bring your talismans,
No.
because it seems that that would be the thing that would attract a whole extra side of like occult Mormons, because it's already in there. Like all of this is baked into the religion, but they're not letting you get to the good stuff unless you do it without saying it, right? You got to dance around it. But what if there was a like an overt, like exoteric version of Mormonism that said, hey, on Fridays we do sigil magic, bring your square of Saturn.
I'm sure that there probably is at the highest levels, but for us in the main Goyim population, this is extremely no. You're not even to read your own horoscope. So there's that, which Joseph Smith totally did. He was completely, I think I have one of his journal entries on astrology. And so I'm like, yeah, I do. I just don't think that this guy is illiterate and or stupid. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Like it's almost laughable because they want us to believe that. They want you to think that that's really how things are, and it couldn't be further from the truth, but I think they're afraid of what it leads to. I think they're afraid of they're going to have to explain it. And I
It
really
feels
do.
like they're gonna have to at some point, although also who knows what the hell's in the Vatican archives, right? Who knows what secrets that they were able to maintain for thousands of years to the point where no one even knows what questions to ask anymore. And the Mormon church is only 200 years into that. So that, but also they started, not too long before the internet came out compared to other religions. So I don't know if they can bury it forever. It almost seems like there would be a point of reckoning at some point when a future prophet, or maybe if our prophet leaves into and I said our because now I'm a Mormon now, but like if he lives to 120, it's like, all right, there were talismans. All right, he read, the Magus. I
I
guess
have
we
one in
might as
my
well tell you
pocket.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had one the whole time.
Yeah, really, you don't need your freaking garments. You just need this little dime in your pocket. I think people would like that better, to be honest. But uh,
That's what I'm legitimately saying, is because there is going to be a swing to the like sort of atheist secular version of society for a long time, and then the pendulum's going to swing back and someone's going to be like, give me the most occult thing you got, and like I don't want any of the weird Crowleyan sex magic. Mormonism would be right there, right? It's like it's
well,
everything that Crowley had but way less sex.
well, we don't know about his parchments. I don't want to speculate about what's on those parchments because the way they make those parchments is
Human
it's
skin, right?
gross. Yeah, no, the sex magic-y stuff. It's uh, read the Saturnus Fraterni. It's disgusting.
Do you think that Joseph Smith brought that over too, or do you think he left some of that out?
I hope he didn't do it, but who knows? It's ew, it's yuck. So I just I don't know. But he seemed to be very into sex, so it would not surprise me. And he seemed to be killing it with the ladies. So he must have been doing something good. I don't know. I mean, he was
The
stealing other
girl, I'm so
people,
good. They're gonna be digging me up 3 or 4 times in the future just to get another look at this.
digging up that treasure. Yeah, no, I
Trying to
think
make those magic sticks.
they definitely made something, and this is just a rendition of them digging for treasure, exactly like we've spoke about, but these magical seals were on the ground that his dad made with a sword, and this was again described in the court case, for the treasure digging case, so it's great because these are all actually documented, like, on affidavits. This isn't just Josie told her neighbor, Paul, blah, blah, blah. No, these are, indefinite. So what do? Oh, that guy just hated Joseph Smith. That's what it was. I'm like, yeah, but he wasn't the only one. There's so many of them, you know? And so, yeah, I don't,
This is kind
I
of
think
wild to me because it implies that they're manifesting the treasure. That
they
like
were
if
trying.
you didn't
Mhm.
put the sigil on the ground, then the treasure wouldn't be there. So therefore, it's the sigil that is creating the gold that they're after, and not that they're finding it.
Well, it was more that they said that the treasure was slippery, and if they didn't have this all on there, that it would slip back into the earth, and that's what they always said happened every single time. So because they never found anything.
This sounds more and more like Ghostbusters the way that you describe it.
Right? Yeah, invoking and evoking and all these weird things,
And you got
and
to
then you
keep it in
look.
a stream, and you got to like slowly put it into the trap, and it can slip away like Slimer would.
So if they're not against putting a dead guy's hair in a cane, I wonder oftentimes what's in this altar.
That's not so weird. I mean, my mom still has some of my baby teeth, I think, somewhere, which is kind of creepy.
But I'm talking about what they would do to help this magical process, right? Your mom's probably not doing Solomonic magic with it.
Well, we don't know.
So who knows? But I found this interesting. And remember, the OTO is much older or newer than Joseph Smith. But if you look at the signs, look at the hands, pretty interesting. This is Typhon. And if you really look at it close, the thumb is out. But this is a crappy picture, but also it was giving me hell to even send anything. So it was blocking everything. So they do not like it when you send Solomonic magic. So just so you know.
Also, this is the robe in the famous, or one of the robes in that famous picture of Aleister Crowley, and it looks like he's got a triangle on his head. It's not a triangle. He just has the hood of the one of these robes kind of like laid on top of his head. It's not a hat, it's part of the hood. And that
Right.
and then these also have all sorts of different colors. There's like 8 freaking color. I'm making a number up, but there's like 8 freaking colors, and each color represents a different level or a different sort of degree that you're in within Thelema.
Yep. Yep. And it makes you wonder, like, this is a part of chaos magic. You know, this isn't Typhon isn't necessarily a great one to do. So it makes you wonder, like, what are they doing exactly? Like, are they doing that, against the people that they're supposed to be helping? Because when you're doing this part, you're praying for people that are sick, supposedly in this book. So when somebody that's Mormon says, I'll put you on the temple list, this is the temple list here. And this is the chanting that they're going to be doing all around it. So I take a hard pass on that one. I don't know.
With the aprons.
Yeah,
Hear
I don't
me
feel
out, though.
comfortable.
This would make an adorable baby onesie.
Oh, with the little head. Okay. Well, I don't know. It'd be warm, I guess, right? If you made it out of the right material. This is something we haven't talked about before, and we'll just do a little bit today because
it's not Dick Cheney, right? It looks like Dick Cheney.
No, but don't they all? They're all in the CIA together. What? And so, no, this was just a priesthood blessing, and your head has been consecrated with oil when you're receiving this blessing. But also, this was for me to represent your patriarchal blessing. So even though we're told we can't be seers, the prophet's a seer, even though we can't do astrology or future seeing, they have someone called the patriarch in each ward. So that's like the same as your Catholic people with the priest, in that, I don't know what you guys call it, but like your church, the people you go to church with. And so you have one per ward. And when you're about 16, you go and get a patriarchal blessing, and they can tell you your future. Basically, they give you this blessing that says, if you do everything you're supposed to do, this will happen for you. And they also tell you what tribe you're from. So like if you're from the tribe of Ephraim or from the tribe of I'm from the tribe of Ephraim. So it's a whole thing.
The Catholics have their own names for all this. So in Catholicism, exactly the same as you described it, but the smallest level would be your parish full of parishioners. You would be a parishioner in a parish. And then once you go outside the parish, it's the diocese. And then outside the diocese is the archdiocese. And then I think it goes national at some point. And each of them, it's almost like politicians too, where you've got the pastor in front of the parishioners, and then you go up to like a bishop and then a cardinal, and each of them reflects what type of range they have geographic control over.
Okay, yeah, so very similar. And you can kind of see like the the bishop would be like your probably priest. And then this guy is like a seer. He's like a prophet, he's called the patriarch. And this is all he does. And the first one, the first patriarch to do these blessings was Joseph Smith's dad. And so very interesting. Yeah. Give your dad a job, right?
See, I just have to say that like Joe Biden missed his calling. He could have just been rubbing little kids' heads all day and like gotten paid for it and been respected for it, and people wouldn't be making fun of him.
Exactly. Yeah, he could have done that. It would have been way better unless he started sniffing. But
are you no sniff policy during these sessions?
I guess you can't see behind you, so maybe you'd be safe.
Yep.
I mean, somebody goes with you though. But this is also baptisms for the dead. Another little part of this makes you wonder, like, okay, you're taking upon yourself. You're not just baptizing like and saying, okay, that was for you, Jesse. No, you are saying, I am your proxy. Jesse Smith is me today. I am this person. And so when you're doing this starts out pretty young. And once again, we get back into necromancy. And are we possibly bringing all your dead relatives and locking their souls here?
Can you explain what we're looking at for anyone that doesn't know?
So this is the baptismal font inside the temple for the baptisms of the dead. And there are oxen holding it up, supposedly representing the 12 tribes of Israel. So I always found it a little nefarious that we're going to put virginal children in a big bowl with a cow underneath it.
Did you ever go into this bowl?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Is it chlorinated?
A little bit. Yeah. Yeah. It's just like pool water in there, but you're wearing all white. You can't see out into the stands at all. And you're there as like a 12, 13-year-old kid. I mean, it was pretty embarrassing. Even my husband said the same thing, that it made him pretty uncomfortable. You're there with all the other boys and girls for your age group.
Can you do
and you're all wet.
Cannonball?
No. Yeah, no, definitely not.
So awesome.
Yeah, no, they would definitely kibosh that.
It would totally be worth it though.
And I mean, you walk down in, so you're already in like by that time, because it's like a little progression of stairs right here. But yeah, you're in, it makes you wonder, are we doing the opposite about, like, if you really truly believe like how people talk about living in a matrix or being stuck here or, not being able to get out? What if they're locking those spirits in, not really helping them out? Right? What if that's what's happening? Because remember about the binding spells to keep things in, and you're now baptizing in there. What if they're all locked down and the only way out is through you? Then you're going to have a real demon problem, or spirit. We'll call it spirits.
And you said on a previous show that every Mormon temple has one of these baptismal baths, right? Not just the Big Daddy in Salt Lake City.
Oh, this is the work that they do. The only reason why the temples exist is to do the work for the dead. That's the only reason.
So it would be impossible to have a proper temple without a baptismal pool?
Mm-hmm.
And do they all have this ornate look, or do you go into some and it's like a budget-in temple? Like it's just like an inflatable pool, and they're like, okay, baptize inside that.
I've only seen fancy ones, but I mean, I don't know what would be like acceptable, maybe.
Could you go? I don't know any of the answers to any of these questions. If I was like interested, or if I was a Mormon, can you go city to city and be like, hey, can I look at your baptismal pool? Like, do you mind if I take a look?
No, but you can get, if you have your temple recommend, you can go to do these things at each place. And my grandma did do that. So you would go do a session for the endowment session or a sealing or the baptism, but you can't be in all the places at once. Either you're doing the session, which is 2 hours long, the sealing, which is like fake marriage for people, or these baptisms, which are usually reserved for kids.
And these all happen in this room?
No.
So only the baptism happens in this room?
Yep. And so that's the only thing that they do all day long. It's just.
Are you allowed to ride the oxen by any chance?
No, no oxen riding, but that would be pretty funny.
It would be. If they you could turn that into a carousel, and now it's super fun.
I mean, or it could be, a representative of sacrificing your kids to Moloch. That's not fun.
Well,
But maybe I'm just dark.
12 Moloch,
Maybe,
right?
yeah, maybe I'm just darker than other people now. Who knows?
Well, I mean, if they're going into water and they're not coming out just burnt up, then technically it's not an offering.
Yeah, there you go. It's symbolizing, right? It's all symbolizing, but you got dead people.
According to the fall of Carthage and all of the priest class in Carthage as it was falling, that was the reason, is because everyone was proxying everything, and they were like, dude, like, we built this whole city on child something, and if you're not giving your actual child, like, you can't proxy this, you can't bring a cow, you can't be like, oh, it's on symbolic fire. It's like, no, like, this god wants actual fire, and that's why our city is going to hell. And then it did, and then it was erased.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what they're doing. So I guess they can't get away with anything better. Maybe it'll all go to hell too. Or maybe they're just waiting to, trap everyone inside.
Maybe that's why they need 12 bulls. Like they're only pleasing Moloch about 1/12, but if you get 12 of them, then I don't know, maybe it's a workaround.
Right, maybe. And they just announced a whole bunch of new temples that are going to be built. I think they said over 300 more. So maybe they're just building all these temples and trapping all these bad things inside for the last days, and then all hell's going to break loose, literally. That would be fun. No, it wouldn't. That's just where my dark mind goes. It's fine. So we'll get into the craziness of Brigham Young and Joseph Smith that I thought was just silly. And I remember the first time I told you about it, I laughed and I was like, isn't that silly? Like, they're just crazy. Well, maybe not. So who can tell us of the inhabitants of this little planet that shines on an evening called the moon? So it is in regard to the inhabitants of the sun. Do you think that it is inhabited? Rather think it is. Do you think there is any life there? No question of it. It was not made in vain. So knowing what you know about Hermetics and sun and moon worship, would you like to comment?
I mean, I think it's a little bit weird to think that there's life on the sun, but the sun would be, I mean, even from an objective, non-occult standpoint, the sun is the source of all life. Like well, I guess if you're super religious, you'd be like, that's not true, that's sun paganism. But like on a scientific, secular level, all energy and activity and growth of any kind on any planet in the solar system, all is just a repurposing of this raw energy from the sun, and it just like materializes in weird ways, and then eventually we're all going to get sucked back up into the sun again, right? So that's the secular, but that also blends into the Gnostic aspect, where even if you say that there's life on the sun, the word on is doing a lot of extra lifting there that it doesn't need to be, because you're just saying the sun is life. And I guess on the moon aspect, if also in like the occult version, not in the classical planet sense where they considered it, but that the moon is just a reflection of sun's life. Although I think in some occult circles the moon has its own light. I don't get into every different little pagan micro sect and the difference of those, but that's my understanding, is that the sun is the actual source of life and light. The moon reflects that. And the moon also gets to be like a manipulator of the light. That's like the feminine aspect of it, is that it's reflecting this like pure energy.
So the sun and the moon are really important as far as Hermetics and as far as sun pagan worship and moon pagan worship, or like Egyptian worship. We can get into all that, but like I'm just going to glaze over this. But obviously, where this religion involved females just as much as males, it doesn't surprise me that they're always showing the masculine and feminine, right, when they're doing worship. So I don't think that they're 6 foot tall Quakers living on the moon, like Joseph said, but also, like you said, like maybe it's a code. Maybe that's a code word for something else, just like in alchemy with the salamander. Like,
well,
who
I mean,
knows?
100%. I think whenever you've got somebody, as accomplished as Brigham Young and all the things that he knew and the things that he'd done and seen and read and said, when you boil it down to like a little like sort of a quotable bite like that we've got here, he knows that in the right context, this is saying way more than just the words that we see here. So, I mean, I would be convinced of that because he was such an occultist, like an advanced occultist.
Definitely. And he knew about, the mentality of the moon, whereas, the life force in the sun and bringing that together. And I definitely think that's why there is a definite 1 to 2% of Mormonism that probably still practices some Crowleyism type stuff. Like, not that he invented it, but we just all know that name, right? Some sex magic type rituals, because there's no way with all of the things that they say. And like you said, he knew exactly what he was talking about. And then this leads us to a really weird, obscure situation with Joseph Smith. Did you know that Joseph Smith bought mummies from a traveling salesman?
That sounds right. I didn't know that, no, but it like that doesn't shock me at all. It seems like the kind of thing that he would do.
Yeah, for sure. And it leads into the Book of Abraham, which we will have to talk about someday. But
This was a common practice, especially in like the first wave of Egyptology that I guess Joseph Smith would have been around for. That not only were people buying and selling mummy, a lot of fake ones too. A lot of people got swindled out of someone making their own mummy and like aging it. But they also, man, there was a certain name for it, but they would grind them up and putting them into pills, or they would like sell you the finger, and like the intention is that you would consume it. You would actually eat this, and people would use this as like a catch-all remedy. This is one of the very first versions of snake oil before I guess the Rockefeller family started doing it all out of petroleum-based products. But before then, they were grinding up dead
people's
people
organs.
and selling that as the same thing that snake oil ends up getting sold as, a cure-all.
It's pretty gross. And on top of it, I think this is how the plague happened. Like, not just the plague, but like multiple other diseases, right? This is not a safe practice for sure. But yes, you are correct. And Joseph purchased these mummies and papyrus from a traveling exhibitor in Kirkland, Ohio in 1835. And he said they contain the records of ancient patriarchs Abraham and Joseph, but actually they were just these scrolls that they buried with dead people. And this became a huge problem for the church later. When we do a show about the Book of Abraham, we'll go into it, because I remember looking at this when I was young and thinking, this is the only good part about church. Like, I'd flip open to these dumb pages and I'm like, yeah, this looks pretty cool. Like, but there's a whole thing about these Book of Abraham situation. And there's actually people that have broken it down in a different way, saying about enlightenment and all this stuff. But honestly, these have been proven that they're dead people writings, like, that get buried with people that die. So, yeah, it's been a problem for the church, but they can't let it go. This was my favorite one. I was like, oh, he's gonna kill him. But during church, the only good part of church, I was like, huh, creepy. But yeah, so they made this a whole.
Out because we got to see people eating blood and body of on every single mass that I ever went to.
Yeah, there you go. We got bread and water. Wasn't quite as thrilling. So, but nevertheless, this is what they really look like.
Your proxies. That's going to be the end of you.
Mormons and proxies, you know it. And then this is the last picture that I had about, witchy stuff. And that is that Joseph Smith and a couple other of his buddies went to Salem, and they made this weird, all of a sudden trip in the midst of translating the Book of Mormon and everything. And he's like, there's treasure there. We got to go there. So they go there, and then they end up not finding, of course, any treasure, but they did learn a lot about witches and what got them killed. And the church says, well, it's really not that odd when you look at it, because they used it as learning to be more accepting and not have this happen again. BS. He learned exactly what not to say and do to get ever in trouble. That's what I think he was doing. So I put this.
And that's where all the code words come from. This is when you start talking about salamanders and stuff.
Yes, exactly. And this I put in here, I'm sure there's some witchy thing that it's supposed to be, but I don't know for sure, but it's pretty funny. They do this.
Hosanna, Hosanna, Hosanna to God and the Lamb.
I can't watch it for 5 minutes or whatever this is, but this is something that they do at the dedication ceremonies, and they all do it.
Who's Hosanna?
No, this is the Hosanna shout. They just are shouting Hosanna, but they're
But
dedicating
who
a
the hell is
temple.
Hosanna?
You tell me who Hosanna is. To God and the Lamb.
I think it just means pray, but it's weird. That would be weird to just go and just start saying pray, pray. Like the word isn't the prayer. It's kind of
Praise.
weird.
It's supposed to be an expression of adoration, praise, or joy.
Okay.
So it made me laugh so bad because all I could think of is if I've seen anything weird with Mormons, this is one. I had to put it in here because it made me laugh so bad when I seen it, and I was like, "This is crazy."
It
They're
definitely
crazy.
has come up in psalms that I've heard in church. Some of the most annoying ones, actually.
Well, it definitely made me giggle, and I'm sure there's a more nefarious, situation that I could find, but I thought we'd end on a high note of the silly Hosanna hankies because it did make me giggle, and I thought you might giggle too. Um,
I want to see if I've got any other. Okay, I do have a couple other Harry Potter Mormon
yes.
observations, and maybe you can answer on some of the. First of all, not Mormon related. Do you remember the vibrating broom toys that came out when Harry Potter first came out? Do you remember this? It was a
That
pretty
went
big
around your
controversy.
house? Yeah, that went around your house or no?
No. So the whole premise was that it was like a plastic broom, and you would activate it, and you were like in a Quidditch match, and it would play
Oh.
sounds and stuff, but it would vibrate like you were flying it. But someone started posting on the internet. It was like, "Are you selling vibrators to children?" And and they had to recall all of them because once someone asked that question, it was like the answer was kind of a, well, technically, yeah, I guess we are. So they took, and I think
Yeah.
that they ended up being, if you've got a vibrating Harry Potter wand, it might be worth a little bit of money right now. So
Wow. Oh, that's wild. No, I did
so yeah,
not hear about that. That's
I
funny.
feel
It
like
makes
there
me
should
laugh.
be a Mormon Hogwarts, but a Mormon Hogwarts wouldn't be able to exist unless you were actively trying to train up a prophet.
Yeah.
But it doesn't. Is there like a prophet school? Like, can you go down a certain? Do you have to just join Skull and Bones, and
Yes.
that's your fast
No,
track?
it's the CIA. I think it
Well,
maybe the
same
NSA,
difference.
the FBI? Yeah, we have 6 of those buildings in Utah that are all different. We have the NSA, the FBI, the CIA, the IRS, a Hill Air Force Base, and I'm probably missing one. But yeah, I'm sure
So
those are the
Hogwarts is
training.
Yale then. You go to
Yeah.
Yale, and then if you're Harry Potter, you get tapped into the Skull and Bones, and then
Well,
eventually you get to become a prophet.
the University of Utah has their own Skull and Bones that was set up by actual Yale members, and actually those people were certified to set it up, even though they didn't sanction it.
Oh,
So,
so did
yeah.
the current prophet that's Skull and Bones, did he go through Yale, or did he go through the Mormon version of Yale?
No, he went through the Mormon version that was set up by the actual people from Yale. So, I
Okay, I didn't know
mean,
that.
yeah.
I wonder
And
if the Yale socialites consider the Mormon Skull and Bones to be their equals, or if they're like,
so
we gave that to
I
them. They can pretend like they're Skull and Bones.
I talked to Mark, and Mark shout out Mark. He highly doubts it. He highly doubts that they give them cred now, but when it was
Right.
done, they gave them cred then because they were the people actually left there and came here to live and set it up, and they, like, made sure. And so, I mean, what happened to it after that? Who even knows? Because like I said, we can't even drink wine, so maybe they're like, "Those schmucks." Who knows? So
Okay, so here's some Mormon questions for you that were inspired by watching Harry Potter, the first movie. Are there Mormon monsters? Are there demons and Leviathan and Book of Revelations and the Scarlet Woman? Like, are those literally interpreted through Mormonism? Like, do you have a Leviathan?
They do use the Bible in as much as it is translated correctly, but they do not focus on any demons. They don't want your mind. They will even say to you, don't even talk about it. Don't even say that. Don't even say that word. Like they're really weirdly paranoid about magic, but you can watch Harry Potter.
What about like exorcisms? Is there any correlation with an exorcism within Mormons? So you
Never,
can't be
because
possessed by a dark entity in Mormonism?
well, my argument is they probably are fully possessed by multiple things and they don't want them out of there, but there is no type of any help for that whatsoever. You just didn't pray hard enough. You didn't do it right. So,
this one might be more of a Harry Potter question than a Mormon question. I don't know. Do you think Hogwarts had like teen pregnancies or like a sex ed class?
Mormons do. They really have a lot of them. In fact, they have so many that they own their own adoption type situation, and they're always the hardest ones. And they made the laws in Utah so like specific on adoption that they can be one of the few states where you can have the baby and sign it over, boom, within an hour. Like, and so people fly in here all the time to do that, specifically that. But no, I don't know. I don't know though, because well, it would be cool if they had a teenage pregnancy with the kid that died, right? In the Quidditch match.
Cool's an interesting word to use there. If you're in a Mormon temple and you're looking around to your left and your right, and you don't know what houses or cars people are driving or like going back to, how can you tell like who's the upper class and the middle class Mormons? Are there like certain brands or like, because I guess in a Catholic church, you would notice they're just blinged out in gold and they've got like, Ferragamo shoes on. Like it is part of church growing up, from my interpretation, was like, let's flex a little bit. Let's show off a little bit of like this fancy stuff that I got only on Sundays, which ironically is supposed to be when you're kind of humbling yourself, but people rarely do that. But I would just want, are there like telltale signs?
Handbags for sure, shoes for sure, suits, they all wear suits, so it's got to be the nicest suit. But I will say this, where you guys have like your parish is for a pretty wide area and you've got like one. We have, I mean, so many. We have a church on every corner. So if you're in the rich people area, you're going to be with rich people church. Yeah, you're not going to be going to church with the slums down the street.
That was an interesting dynamic. Yeah, that like in the whole city there would be like the one Catholic parish until more spring up. But yeah, you've got every different type of class going to this one place, and you can see the crazy differences between all the classes. And the reason I was thinking is like in Mormonism, there's almost a dress code, right? So it makes it seem like it would be a little bit harder than it would be in other religions where there's not as much of a dress code.
Well, I mean, you just have to wear a shirt and a tie, but I will say for the men, you have to wear a white shirt because that's representative of your priesthood calling. Unless you're not a priesthood holder, then you can wear whatever you want, but they really do want you to wear a white shirt. You can wear whatever tie you want. So usually it's going to be fancy shoes and fancy handbags, or for girls, dresses, but they have to be modest. I mean, obviously. But I mean, it only has to be to the knee. So it's really not that bad. Like you can find cute stuff. I mean, but you wouldn't want like a stage 5 clinger dress to go. No, they will look at you like going straight to hell with that one.
If you're I guess you're not allowed to drink coffee still, right? Or are you allowed to now? It's hard to keep track of.
Well, they say do what makes you happy, but they will never have any kind of refreshments, and you're not allowed to have any snacks or anything into the main part where they're doing the sacrament.
Okay, but on the way there, like if you wanted to stop at a Starbucks, you'd be okay. So, and like if you drank and you didn't bring it in a temple. So if you're a guy and you have to wear a white shirt, and on the way to temple, you stop off at Starbucks and you get, I guess, a quad long shot grande and a venti cup with a half couple double cup, no sleeve, salted caramel, mocha latte with 2 pumps of vanilla.
Got a difficult girlfriend.
So you go through all this and then you spill some on your white shirt. Are you going back home and not going to temple? Or do you show up to temple and risk looking like you just spilled your no sleeve salted caramel
You're
mocha
going
latte
home
with 2 pumps?
You're going home. No way. You're not going in there like that unless you got a kid that puked on you. You're not. No, 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 no. And the other thing I wanted to mention, the way they segregate us and keep us kind of in our lane, so to speak, right? With these parishes, like we'll say it like that. Ours are called wards, and that makes me laugh because wards.
Like a
Anyway, sick
warden,
people.
warden of the
Sick
ward.
sick people getting locked down. Yeah. Okay, so I'm a nurse, so my brain went there. But I will say this, they built their own. So all the prophets and these people that are important all wanted to live by each other. They're wanting to go and be by one another. So early in, I think it was 1940s when this happened, they built their own housing development where the rich people live. You want to take a guess at what they named it? It's pretty funny.
Brigham something, Smith something, Moroni
Ma
something.
Mount Olympus, because it's where the
Oh,
gods live.
fair point.
So, pretty funny. I do think it's also funny that they like to call their god Elohim, but that's a that's a title. Like the B'nai Ha-Elohim is like a whole bunch of people and not just one person. So I found that also interesting. They've got a lot of interesting things. They also believe in a heavenly mother, but we do not speak of her. We do not know her name, and we are never allowed to talk about her. But I found quite a few. I'm going to be doing a show on that one very soon, this Thursday. And I find it interesting. I really truly believe Mormons are pretty much misled, and they're probably worshiping gods with a plural. And you can do whatever you want. Just stop lying to people, man. Like, do what you want, whatever, you know?
Well,
That's
I
how
guess
I feel.
perfect plug for X Church, where Andreas Zertis's version of Mormonism, you can kind of do some of what you want. There's still rules. There has to be
Yeah.
rules.
Well, I mean, it depends on who you are because the rules were not to drink, but then Joseph Smith owned a bar and made his own beer. So who knows? You know, these things are all relative, right?
So
Eh,
I don't think I had any other Mormon Hogwarts. I did one observation again because this is the first time that I watched this movie since 2001 when it came out, exactly 66 days after 9/11. If you care about numbers. But one thing that struck me is that they totally give Neville brain damage. Like he tries to stop them at the end. They're going to like the forest or somewhere. They're going somewhere they're not supposed to. And Hermione casts, or Emma Smith casts, some spell on Neville. Who's Neville in the Mormon world anyway? Who's the guy
Oh,
that's like,
Martin.
okay, okay, yeah.
No.
So Martin. But Neville
Yeah.
gets frozen, and you just see his body fall, and it hits the ground so hard, his head bounces up, and it hits again. And every other time you see Neville for the rest of this movie, at least, he's
Oh.
kind of like spaced out a little bit. He's not all there. So I mean, I think
He
clearly
gave him a
Hermione,
TBI. They gave him
they
a TBI.
yeah, absolutely. He might as well have gone into like pro football and just gotten hit for like 20 years
Oh.
straight.
Oh man. Yeah, I don't even know. That sounds bad. Yeah, I will have to look at it. Now I'll have to watch the other ones with a mindset of TBI and watch what he does the rest of his days, right? Oh
We're looking
my
out for
god.
Neville on this. I think if anyone, I'm
Yeah.
team Neville.
Man, poor Neville. Yeah, Martin Harris. He's Martin Harris, dumb to dumb dumb dumb. You saw it, right? You know what I'm talking about?
The South
South Park.
Park. Yeah. That was my
Yeah.
entry point to Mormonism, just the same way
Yes.
that it was kind of my entry point into Scientology.
Oh man, Scientology's a whole, yeah, that's a whole nother big one. I don't know. They have even more rules than Mormons. I feel bad for them.
I think they're going to get a spaceship before the Mormons do, though.
Oh man, I think they're all gonna combine together and that the Catholics sold out and that the new one world religion will be Masonry. Because you only have to believe in a higher power.
I'm not going to argue against it. If anything, it seems like it would improve the world. Because
I
there's a
mean,
direct correlation with the free fall of Masonic membership and the free fall of society. I mean, I don't know.
yeah.
Take a step back and just look. You can almost lay the graphs on top of each other, and it's like, oh wow, these two things are related. Why not just give it one last hurrah, right? Try
Mm.
and kind of like boost Masonic membership, see what happens in society. Maybe it gets better. And then if it
Maybe
doesn't,
it
then we get to
will.
bring on the end times, and then we all get to go to heaven earlier anyways, right? For the rapture.
I mean, yeah, if you're checked out or if the rapture doesn't happen, as long as the sword's sharp, I'm good with whatever. I don't want the used sword. I don't want the crusty old sword. That's all I'm saying.
So what do we got planned for in 2 weeks from now? Any ideas?
So there has
You
been a
mentioned
lot
tunnels.
unpacked. Yeah. Oh, I have a whole presentation and show about tunnels. And funny enough, it was my very first show that I ever did with Josh Monday or any podcast whatsoever. And so I'm sure I could make that a lot better now because I didn't know a lot.
What about
Yeah.
Mormon Thanksgiving? Is there anything that we could get into with Thanksgiving?
Bunch of people showing up in their best outfits. It's not really too holidays are pretty norm with the Mormons. I mean, they got a lot of kids. At my house, it's pretty busy. You're cooking for a long time. You're
Turkey,
cooking.
same as
Oh, yeah.
everywhere else in the country.
Yep. Turkey. Yeah. So they do all the things, ham on Christmas, blah, blah, blah. Let's give homage to Tammuz. They don't want to mess it up. Let's be real. We should do a show on the Hermetics, and like I would need more time than a little bit to prepare, but the Hermetics and then the like combination with your side with Catholics, my side with Mormons, and Hermeticism in the middle, it would be fun.
Okay, we'll do like a who's better. We'll rate
Yeah.
each one and see who wins between the Hermetics and Gnostics and Catholics and Mormons. And then I mentioned
I think that would be fun.
I mentioned earlier too that I've been watching the Ark series, so maybe we'll do like another sci-fi space Mormon. Those ones are always kind of fun to do.
They love it too. They freaking love. They have like everybody loves anything sci-fi out in Mormonville, USA.
The only
So
Mormon family that I remember growing up, which was on my block, that was what the whole like the family would all be doing their own things. Like you would never see in my friend's dad or his mom. They'd always be like doing their own stuff. But when freaking Star Trek came on, the entire family would like come out of their holes. And yeah, it was weird. And sometimes this is the weirdest part. Sometimes they would ask me to leave because it was like that was like Star Trek was family time. Yeah, it was like private time.
This is the way. After I watched
that point, so
after I watched the Mandalorian and stuff, after knowing as much Hermetic stuff as I do now, I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is what's up. Yeah, okay, that's what they're talking about. But I mean, I think all of it, the way they just use space or sci-fi stuff in general, which we haven't really. I mean, I don't know how deep of a dive we could go on Kolob, but we could try. They just try and say it never happened and shove it under the rug. But if we mixed it with astrology, that might be a show too.
Well, they just want all that real estate for themselves. That's the issue, I think. Because someone at some point was like, guys, there is a finite number of planets out here. We can't just be giving them out to anyone that wants a planet. So like maybe stop selling. Like don't push that as the special anymore. Like that's off menu.
I was watching this lady. She must have been Mormon, but I didn't know. I was watching a show, a podcast, and he's like, you know, the Mormons with their planets and their space babies and blah, blah, blah. And he explained it just perfectly. And I'm laughing like, and she's like, I'm Mormon. That's not true. And I'm like, oh gosh, here we go again. She's like, where did you hear that? And I'm like, oh, see, I told you guys. They took it off the menu.
This little place called the internet. Oh, I don't use that.
Yeah, no. It was pretty funny, actually. I was like, oof, I'd hate to have had that. I mean, I was once that person, but it wasn't recorded though. So I'm okay about it.
Did you ever make a face at someone at some point? It was like, ew.
Oh, I remember my mom saying something about Jesus once, and she was out of the church, and I remember thinking, oh, silly her, she just doesn't know. And I know me and my grandma were like, we know, yeah, we know. She doesn't know. She hasn't been to the temple. She doesn't know. And I'm like secretly inside scarred and like, yeah, okay. Well, I'm kind of glad she doesn't know. But yeah, for sure. I think it's definitely a weird rabbit hole. I think literally abracadabra on top. Yeah, the Mormonism.
All right, well, let's get out of here. Where can people find Heidi Love and Unfiltered Rise?
Yes, I am Heidi Love of the Unfiltered Rise. I'm everywhere podcasts are served. I do have my own Patreon, and on there we do extra shows twice a month, Murder Mormons or Mayhem about Mormons. It's all kind of related, and I do those with Ex Mojo from Hellfire Agency, and it's pretty fun. It's a pretty silly time, and I do cuss like a sailor on those shows. I try and watch it when I'm with Thomas. Yeah.
It is pith.
Exactly.
If you look it up, I wasn't just saying that. If you look it up, it's pith and vinegar. But it's not as fun to say.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. And I always have a fun time on these shows. And I think this one just needed to have a parallel because as I was learning stuff, I'm just like, this is so weird. How did they keep this under wraps? And nobody, like a kid like you, was like, yeah, let's go do some sigil magic on Thursday, like at the young men's meeting. And I'm like, how did they wrap this up so tight? This is great.
It's weird because they're doing cool stuff, but they're making it boring. I don't understand. Do the opposite. Do boring stuff and make it seem cool. I don't understand. That particular part of Mormonism is the most fascinating part to me. Like they're burying the lead every single chance they get in a way to, like, I guess, soothe the masses. But how do you know that people don't want to have fun doing sigil magic and screaming abracadabra in temple? Like,
I mean,
I hated going to church. If you told me I got to go to church and scream abracadabra and summon spirits the whole time, like, I'd already be in the car waiting on Saturday night.
Get your Harry Potter wand and have your little Slytherin Gryffindor
Had
fight.
literal hair on it. Yeah, that would be awesome.
I mean, yeah, I just can't understand why they want to bury it so deeply, right? Like to make it completely absent of what it started as. You want to say that everything, and they believe that Joseph Smith will come back like Jesus. You want to put everything on, Joseph, then why are you taking everything Joseph out? For my husband.
I mean, I'll make a prediction. They're going to do a switcheroo at some point. There's going to be a Joseph Smith 2.0, and
serious. It's probably Zerdis.
It's going to be Andreas. Yeah,
we just don't know. Yeah, we don't know. We aren't high enough.
Well, I guess if you have to be 100 before it hits, and he is obsessed with living to like 200. So maybe that would honestly be the most genius approach. If Andreas wants to become the next Mormon prophet and he lives to 130 and he still has another 70 to go, he's kind of a shoo-in because no one else has been spending as much. No one else has spent 120 years planning to become the next prophet.
Thousands of vitamins, made of mummy parts, made of mummy pieces, probably. Somebody did ask me if Mormons have a Rumspringer. It's called the first divorce. Because if you do anything before that, you're a slut. So, and you can't do that. And the guys kind of get away with it. My husband used to say part of the reason why he hated the guys that he went to church with is because they were all at the same party he was at on Saturday smoking weed, but they were like so perfect on Sunday. And he was just not about it. He was like, yeah, whatever, man. Like, I don't even care. And so he just was more honest and they would hide everything. So that really put a bad taste in his mouth. But yeah, I will say, like, most Mormons get married super early because you're supposed to be a virgin. And most kids are like tired of waiting. Like I was 17, like tired of waiting. And then it's called the first divorce. So that's the Rumspringer.
Hey, you make Mormon temple sound like an HR meeting. Like everyone knows that everyone is having fun, but you can't talk about it. Otherwise you get in trouble. It's HR.
It's MK Ultra. They're really good at it.
HR Ultra.
MR Mormon Ultra. MR Ultra, because I'm telling you guys, like, I remember thinking the same thing of the girl that was over our young women's, and same thing as my husband. I was like, that girl is a hoe. I know she's a hoe, and sure enough, if she didn't get pregnant within 3 months, and I was like, I said what I said. Like, I'm just saying, like, no judgment or anything, but why is she in the position? And it just always makes you wonder what's behind the scenes. But as I've gotten older, money magic would be a really good one. It wouldn't let me send my, my stupid sigil didn't come through on Mammon. And that pisses me off because I'll show it to you when we do a money magic show, but they're no dummies. I'll tell you this much. There are no dummies.
I think that's an awesome theme. Mormon money magic. I'm already interested in that.
I got a show for you on that one. So I'm actually glad it didn't go through. I don't know how I'm going to get it on my computer. Maybe I'll send it to you. I don't even
Yeah,
know.
I'll do it. I don't care. I'll do the whole ceremony.
Well, I can't get it to come through. The Gmail block. I send it to myself to get it on the computer, and Gmail blocked like half of my slides. So I've spent all morning yelling at the computer, but that doesn't work. So.
Well, next time I'll do a proper sigil. I'll do it in blood and everything.
Oh, they do use blood, actually.
Mormons?
Solomonic magic.
Oh,
If
okay.
it's high up enough, I wouldn't doubt it, because they were talking about in Solomonic magic. The guys I was listening to are current practitioners, and they were talking about doing it humanely and taking your cat to the vet and having the vet, get the blood safely and carefully. So there's that weirdness.
Future episode on cat blood and money magic.
Yeah, blood magic and money magic, but those might need their own shows, but definitely money magic. Yeah.
All right. Well, the things that I got going on is I don't know how well this is going to go. I'm going to try my absolute hardest. This is going to be brand new experience for me, but me and Donut are going to be doing a live show every single day for the next 5 weeks straight. And I'm already I broke a sweat just saying that out loud. Because it's not nothing to do that. But yeah, every single night starting tonight at 11 p.m. Eastern, we're going to be going live for at least in order to drum up some more interest in the Illuminati comic that we've got dropping in 1 week from today. So on 11, this is a mouthful, on 11/11 at 11/11 a.m. we're going to launch the Illuminati comic, and the important thing is to get everyone backing it in like that first 15 minutes when it drops, because that's what tells the algorithm that, hey, pay attention to this and not whatever stupid corpo crap that they're pushing. So that's going to be the big thing. So if you want to come and hang out with me and Donut live every single night at 11 p.m. Eastern, we'll be on one of the platforms, his or mine or Twitter or YouTube or something. So
do you guys have what you're gonna talk about, or is it just gonna be we
do. We've got a whole spreadsheet of so tonight is probably going to be a little bit of a casual free-for-all. We're going to have to talk about the squirrel. That's like the big thing in the news. But yeah, it'll be a nightly sort of Illuminati news show. Each one will be themed, and we're also going to be doing, if Juan can handle it, and I know he's not listening, he doesn't listen to any of my shows, but if Juan can handle it, we're also supposed to be doing a weekly occult book club. And starting next week, we're going to do The History of Magic by Eliphas Levi. And that one is one of the original books that mentions the Bavarian Illuminati in these kind of occult, mystical term, like a non-historical, non-political term. So every book, we'll be doing the occult book club every week. And every one of those will be somehow related to the Bavarian Illuminati.
Wow, that actually sounds awesome. So
it's going to be awesome. Yeah. And I've got a little commercial, so I'll play it as we go out here. So it was awesome talking to you again, Heidi. This is a nice long one. I had fun. It whips by as it always does. So I'm looking forward.
Thank you.
2 weeks, we'll do another one.
Awesome. Money magic coming your guys' way.
Learn about the full history of the Bavarian Illuminati. Adam Weishaupt, Alumbrados, Jesuits, Rosicrucians, Freemasons, and more. From the 18th century to modern day, we expose it all. That's right, it's the Illuminati comic from Donut and Paranoid American. Get yours now at IlluminatiComic.com.
Paranoid. Yo. I scribble my life away, driven to write the page. Will it enlighten your brain? Give you the flight, my plane, paper the highs ablaze. Somewhat of an amazing feel when it's real, the real, you will engage it. Your favorite, of course, the Lord of an arrangement. I gave you the proper results to hit the pavement. If they get emotional, hey, maybe your language, a game, how they playing it well without Lakers. Evade them, whatever the cause, they are the shapeshift. Snakes get decapitated, met is the apex. Execution of flame you out, nuclear bomb distributed at war, rather gruesome for eyes to see. Max them out, then I light my trees. Blow it off in the face, you're despising me for what though? Calculated and rather cutthroat. Paranoid American must be all the blunt smoke for real. Lord, give me a day away, vacate. They wait around to hate whatever they say. Man, it's not in the least bit. We get heavy rotate when the beat hits, so thank us, you're welcome. Fuck the niggas for real, you're welcome. They ain't never had a deal, you're welcome. Man, they lacking appeal, you're welcome. Yet they doing it still, you're welcome.